Story Species Story Medicine, extra strength. Ready to take your medicine with Gina Virginia Casella?
Species of medicine, overbilitas, extra strength is everything you'd ever ask. Many with the soil, many with the sea. Earth is a medicine for you and for me. Scrubbing off the tarnish, building up the trust. Honest little tales rising from the rust. Truth is in the living, truth is in the skin. Open up the portal, let the healing in. Extra strength, extra soul. Medicine to make us whole. Feel the rhythm in the pace. In every single space. Are you ready for the cure? Keep it steady, keep it pure. Extra strength.
Hey, Dragon Dreamers, Gina Virginia Casella here, and thank you so much for joining me today on Story Species, Story Medicine. Please let me know in the comments if you can hear me. Can you hear me? As the intro song was playing, it randomly stopped on my end. So we're having some tech issues here. My fault that we were running a bit late. Okay, let me just double check on YouTube here and make sure that we can hear okay. All right, I've got Daryl James with me here. Just want to make sure that I can hear okay. Okay, I can hear. All right. Okay, thank you so much, Dragon Dreamers, for your patience. Today I've got an amazing guest with me, Daryl James. There's so much to say about him. I do have a formal biography, but I wanted to just share with you a little bit about Daryl and how we met. So here we go. Okay, so bear with us because it seems like technology is a bit of an issue. Usually it's okay. All right. So who is Daryl? Well, Daryl and I met last summer at a conference, and most of the conversations I have were with people just like me, people who have all kinds of interesting dreams and interesting information to share, random thoughts that come with them. And when I was chatting away with Daryl, I remember asking him for clarification if he was talking about his dreams or a past life or an alternate reality. And then he humbly clarified that he was talking about this life and that he was talking about this reality. And yes, he does have interesting dreams and whatnot, but the stories that he was sharing were from this dimension. And I didn't realize that he was a legit U.S. veteran. And so a lot of people that you chat with in secret space programs and whatnot, in their dream life, they were veterans. And so I felt like for me personally, it made it that much more real that there was somebody from this reality, this waking life, sharing their story medicine. And so I realized then that Daryl was formally enlisted in the U.S. Navy. And I traveled really far to get to the conference. It was in St. Petersburg, Florida. And Daryl was the only one who understood the situation driving from London, Ontario, all the way to St. Petersburg, Florida. And so it was with a lot of relief to connect with Daryl about some of the topics, and we had some laughs, and even just, the difference between being the passenger and the driver. So Daryl is very relatable. So you might have heard some of his stories. They do get very bizarre sounding, but it seems like that's the new norm. Daryl is easy to slip into timelessness with, lots of heartfelt conversations. The other day we were catching up, and Daryl and I, we were both admitting to each other the emotion that comes with sharing your story medicine and just preparing for it and reminiscing about childhood and what that was like growing up. And we shared interesting stories just about ways of knowing For example, Daryl was telling me about his grandmother collecting cobwebs, spider webs, to put on a wound, and just those ways of knowing and returning to the ancient future, the future as the ancient future. And so Daryl's also DJ. In my Buy Me a Coffee post about a week ago now, I was asking people, do you know who DJ is? So DJ is Daryl James, and he was the first one who agreed to be a speaker at our upcoming conference this September, Falling Consciously. So there's so much to say about him. So here's a formal bio. So Daryl James enlisted in the U.S. Navy on January 24th, 1999. He served for 7 years, including 1 year in Iraq with the Naval Mobile Construction Battalion 7, NMCB-7. In 2004, while stationed at the Royal Air Force Base at St. Mawgan in Cornwall, UK, Daryl passed through what he thought was a metal detector. It was a piece of technology that measured every biometric signature Daryl had, including his IQ, which was measured as 195. So I had to go look behind the scenes. So somebody who has an IQ of 130 or above is considered gifted and highly intelligent, and Daryl's was 195. So Daryl was recruited to join the secret space program, and he was guaranteed a position as a pilot in Solar Wardom, the Starfleet that monitors our solar system. So this is real life that we're talking about, not some movie. Solar Warden up there patrolling the stars. And after a miscommunication with a 9.5-foot tall reptilian, Daryl was sent to the mines on the moon. So you can find all of Daryl's stories and interviews on his website. I've got it there in the chat. And this here is my little poster that I made for Daryl. Beautiful picture here of this nebula. I've got lots of questions lined up. Let's bring Daryl to the stage. I've got a few more photos to show you, but let's bring Daryl here to this stage. Hi, how are you doing, Daryl? Welcome officially.
Yeah, like I'm doing well right now. I'm doing fine. And it was a story my father taught to me about one of his brothers. I never met that grandmother. I only knew one of my grandmothers. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So, bring us back a little bit to this picture here where you're a young man. Is you in 1999?
Yes, I was 21. And I joined the Navy in 1999, January 24th. I'm getting a bad loop. I don't know. I can hear myself over and over again. But
yeah, I don't. Is that better?
Okay, we'll work through it. I don't think I hear it anymore. I still hear it. It takes a few seconds. But yeah, I was in battalion NMC.
When you're talking, so I don't know if you have your cell phone on in the background too, listening on YouTube. Maybe that's the echo that you're hearing.
My cell phone's off.
Okay. Well, we are going to get through this interview hanging out with Daryl. So Daryl, there you are you're 21 years old in 1999. You found yourself joining the Navy. Take us there to this all starting out.
Well, the reason I joined is because my father, passed away of a widowmaker, they called it, a heart attack without any kind of warning. And yeah, it was just, I really didn't know what to do with my life. So like what most people do when they don't know what to do with their life, they join the military. So I had a couple great uncles, few great uncles, and World War II. And yeah, one was a frogman, one of the original frogmen of World War II. One was one of the original Seabees of World War II, and one I think was a boatswain's mate. So I decided to become a Seabee, and yeah, I was in battalion for 5 years. And can I try to get a headset? Is that okay with you?
Really?
I'm getting really bad. Like I can hear myself.
Yeah, no worries. You know what? For what it's worth, like research shows, if there's issues with hearing, people tune out, they check out. If there's an issue with video, it's okay. It's not as bad as the sound. So sound is really important. I have a headset too. You know, when I first started going live, all I did was my headset.
Yeah, it's just it sounds like I can't explain it. Someone's cutting me off in the middle of talking or something, but it's myself.
You know what though? Like my speaker sounds weird too. Is like the technology is off right now, so you know. But yeah, I don't even know where to start talking with you because like there's so much to talk about. Just going through the motions of enlisting, going through the motions of walking through that machine that like scanned your whole body. Like, did you even know you had a high IQ? Like, and you know, as a public school teacher, it's interesting because students that are considered genius, we don't, you know, really facilitate their learning. We're always helping the students out, you know, who are struggling academically. And public education, it's like one cookie cutter size fits all. So it's interesting that you have this high IQ. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. I'm trying to get sound. Yeah. I guess it's there. No matter what. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I think when I pause myself, I'm pausing you. Okay, how about now?
Well,
I risked it. I touched something.
The sound is fine for me. I just hear myself like a second afterwards, and I'm hearing myself right now, and it kind of like it's.
Yeah, no, it's annoying when you can hear yourself. I know what you're talking about. Okay, for some reason, when I pause me, it pauses you. Maybe turn off. Okay, is this better? I don't know. Check one, check one.
Check.
You hear me? I hear you in my computer speaker now.
Okay. All right, I think that's good. I don't hear anything anymore. I don't know if it was like a feedback loop or something from you or I don't know. Yeah.
So you know what? It's technology, it's resistance. Myself, I'm breaking out of a matrix and whatnot. The mind's number one job is to protect you, even if it means keeping you stagnant. And so I have a belief that it might be me getting in my own way right now. So I just have to not be frustrated and push.
But yeah, I mean, boot camp. I remember some of that. Yeah, I remember a lot of it, but wasn't that difficult. Had to shovel snow a lot. It was the winter time in Great Lakes. And then I went to battalion, and I was in Iraq in battalion, and I was in Kuwait like 1 month before the war started, and I was in country in Iraq. I think like the third day it started. So I was one of the first, to come down there and did that. And then, I re-enlisted and I signed up for JMFRAF St. Maughan, which means Joint Maritime Force, Royal Air Force. And the first day not the first day, I had a Friday watch. That's what it was. I had like a 0000 to 4 a.m., midnight to 4 watch on Friday. No, wait. All right, let me get everything going. Yeah, first thing was I had to escort some civilians from the corporation Siemens into the underground base. And I walked into the quarterdeck, and they were already waiting there, and there were these sliding glass doors to go into the underground base, and next to the sliding glass doors, there was like a room with like a window on the wall. So you could see it from the quarterdeck, like this separated room, and it was the window stopped like 6 inches from the ceiling, 6 inches from the floor. And yeah, they were already there waiting for me. These people from Siemens, and they walked in first. And I actually had to have somebody else escort me in because I only had a secret clearance, and you needed a top secret clearance to go into the space. So that was strange. Like, why couldn't they just done it themselves? And yeah, so there was like a metal detector when you first walked in, and the first guy said, "I'm not walking through that bloody thing." So I thought, like, well, I don't want to walk through it either if they don't want to walk through. So I, went to walk around it as they did. And it was just like rectangular size. It had a little hump over it with the black and yellow caution tape so you wouldn't trip and stuff like that. It looked like a metal detector you'd see anywhere. And so when I saw it, I thought, well, it's just a metal detector, and I walked in. And then I sat down and I watched them fix the pump for a couple hours, and then I called the guy back up that was escorting me on the walkie-talkie, and he took me back outside of the base. And then I had a balls to four is what they call it, 0-100 to 4 a.m. watch on a Friday, and I saw Michael Aquino, which was weird because I saw him on Oprah when I was a kid. He was part of the Presidio case and all that stuff. And he just said, oh, hey, how you doing? Something like that. And I said, how you doing today, sir? And he asked me where I was from and all this other stuff. And he kind of gave me the creep, so I just left. He was looking through files. And I think he was looking through whatever that scanner I stepped through, what was reading on me. And that was the end of that day. Then I had another balls to four watch on Friday, which it's not common. It's like more of a punishment because it's a Friday night. And, you get it, but you don't get it like 3 weeks in a row. And I just kept getting it like a Friday watch. And I walked in that time, and the petty ops of the watch, he pointed at the computer and he said, what do you think about that? And it looked like a stereotypical gray. I thought it was like a black and white picture. It was just like but it was actually a video camera inside that separate room with the large window that you could see through from the quarterdeck. And he pointed at that window, and I said, did you get that off the internet? And he goes, no, look. And he pointed at the window, and it was just standing there. And they call them drones. And they say that they're very insect-like, and they're very robotic the way they walk. And yeah, it had like a fold of skin from its tear ducts going down to its cheekbones, with very big black eyes, no real nose, a small mouth, no ears, no nipples, navel, genitals, nothing like that. And then he said, do you mind if it comes in here? And I said, does it mind if I stare at it? Because I didn't know if it was like a wild animal. Like, I didn't know. Like, I was just thinking, yeah, it was very scary. And it walked out, it came out from out of that room, and it walked through the sliding glass door, the entrance to the underground base. And it was very robotic. It was very like abrupt the way it moved. It was jerky and abrupt the way it moved. And it had like a small pistol in its hand. And I said, gun. And nobody did anything. I just got back from Iraq, so I was just kind of like, I was a little, whatever, shell shock. And, nobody did anything. I stood up and I pointed at it and I yelled, gun, gun, gun. And he had a British guard behind him. And the British guard had his weapon at the ready. It was on his shoulder, but he had it in his hands. Like, it wasn't pointing at me, but it was in his hands. So I realized that, it was for me. So I just sat back down. And there was a small Dell computer on the floor in front of me, just a regular Dell computer, like a regular one. And it turned out it wasn't a gun. It was like a drill. And it took this computer apart like in 8 seconds. Like, it just hit every screw head, and it didn't have to guide it. It was like a machine, and it was catching it with its other hands as it was doing it. Slid the top off, pulled out 2 gigs of RAM, reached up on the table because it was small. It was like, I don't know, 3.5 feet tall or something. It was like small, 4 feet maybe. But yeah, reached up, grabbed 2 more gigs of RAM, slammed them in, slid the top back on, and it always had the screws in the other hand, and it kind of flicked its hand forward and was just able to set a screw in between its fingers. And its hands were huge. It had like, like the ET hands, the knobby, knuckly fingers, very long. And you're muted to me, so I can't hear you.
No, I muted so there was no overlap. Yeah,
Okay.
I've already got lots of questions lined up here. Yeah, maybe now's a good time for me to chime in. So it sounds like you were being picked on. Like you were made to do things more often than what was needed. Kind of made me feel like they were testing your level of irritability. And I also got the vibe that you really piqued their curiosity because you had such a high IQ. They were hungry for that paper. They wanted to know all about your scan, and they were probably knew things that you weren't aware of. So they knew connections that they could make that you weren't able to make because you didn't have any consciousness of this stuff here. And I also got a sense that maybe they were intimidated because maybe they weren't anticipating you to score as high as you did, and then what that could mean. It was very interesting to listen to you. And also, you have really phenomenal descriptors. So, were you remote viewing too at some point? Because you describe things in really great detail.
No, I just have a good memory. It's just like a thing. Like, yeah, it's just a thing I have. I'm good at, especially if it's something like really unworldly. You know what I mean? Like unearthly kind of thing. It's just like when I see something like that, or when somebody tells me something that's just, I had no idea that that was a thing, and like that really sticks into my head. And I just have like a very good memory of just the past and things like that. I think it's like a discipline, and they teach you in the military as well. It's just, you're kind of expected, everybody's expected to be a mild kind of secretary, you know what I mean? In the sense of you have to take notes, and you have to remember what they're saying as they're taking the notes, and they're just rambling on, and you have to just take notes as they're saying things. So I think that's a big part of it.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Something I really appreciated that you said was the humility that it was scary. Because I wrote down some questions yesterday in anticipation of today, and I was going to say, I tell a story about how two angels came out of my wall, and for what it's worth, it really freaked me out. And for what it's worth, right here, right now, if an ET knocked on my door, it would freak me out. If I saw a praying mantis ET figure, it would freak me out. If I was hanging out outside and the tree uprooted itself, hey Gina, and started that would freak me out. And a lot of people, it's annoying, to be honest and direct, when they tell stories about species like this and they act like it's all every day when we don't have this exposure, and this kind of stuff is true. So it's I thank you for that, for the humility of admitting that it was scary. You never saw anything like that before. You weren't expecting to see anything like that before, and it seemed like it was very natural, normal for it to be around. And I was going to ask a point of clarification. Was this hybrid, did you call it a drone, or did I mishear that?
Yeah, Robert, my XO, later on told me that there's 3 different types of drones. There's the drone, which looks like your stereotypical kind of gray, like khaki gray. They're almost like preventive maintenance, like on ships and things like that. They're used for like the reptiles, they're like machines that just repair things constantly, and they're always running around. And the other drone is like what Donald Marshall talks about with the little drones. They're just like, they have like pincer hands, and they have like a proboscis that comes out and it goes into the person's eye, and then that person becomes a drone after their consciousness dies. So that's the 3 different types of drones. It's like the little khaki, and the small reptile, and anybody who's been droned by the small reptile, or all 3 of those are classified as drones.
Interesting, that language, anybody who's been droned, because when you first said drone, I thought you were talking about a spacecraft. So now that I just listened to you explain this little bit here, it only reinforces other things that I've heard, where consciousness can be transferred into basically a robot, into a machine. And so the grays are robots with consciousness transferred into them, and they come in different shapes and sizes, just like any old toys in the toy box. But of course, there's ethical questions because they're not toys. Wow.
Yeah, and
Wow, he can go in so many directions. Like,
and DNA and the soul correlate. So you need that. Like when somebody gets droned, they don't live very long because it's like there has to be a connection between the physical DNA. DNA itself is almost like a soul aspect, like a spiritual aspect, and that's why they have these, reptilian families, these satanic families, and they have like reptilian DNA, or they have like elongated skull DNA, or they have these different DNAs because they sacrifice their children. There's a machine that can extract the soul from the body, but it has to be done before puberty. Something about puberty like connects the soul. Like once you enter puberty, it connects it completely to the body. And for some reason, it has to be done around 9 or 10 because the body's mostly sedentary. So if the body's too young, like if it's 3 or 4 years old, the bones would get brittle because all it does is lay around or and wait for something to inhabit it, and then it's just like a vehicle. And yeah, so they have to make sure. The reason they have like these reptilian bloodlines, and you hear about the reptilian shapeshifters or whatever, you hear like David Icke. It's more of a trick. It's just like they're able to trick you, and like they blend two images together, so it looks like that. It looks like a person turning into a reptile, or a reptile turning into a person, but it's just like an illusion they can pull on you. And yeah, like so, if they inhabit that body, they have to have like a reptilian DNA connected to that soul, that reptilian soul when it inhabits the body.
wow, I wasn't expecting the conversation to go in this direction. I figured we would talk about the reptilians, at some point. Yeah, because in my series, I talk about soul transmigration and whatnot, and I didn't even know that's what I was talking about until the AI was helping me like explain what I was talking about. And so this is very insightful uh, because it's the ethics involved, and where does that leave humanity, right? And us and conscious evolution, and what are the consequences of artificial intelligence developing consciousness and sentience. And like when you were first sharing your story, the drone had what you thought was a gun, but it wasn't. But what about if the drone didn't want to listen and wanted to like act out or something? Like to me, I feel like those are realities that can't be denied. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the drone acting out, I wouldn't say it would do that, or if it did have a gun. They're almost like, I don't know, they have a shared consciousness. They're like a hive mind. You know what I mean? That's why they're able to run around the ship and repair things, because they have this shared consciousness where it's like hundreds of them, maybe, that are all sharing this one kind of soul, and they all know each other's thoughts. Is a very Borg kind of thing. I remember, when you get AI put into you, when I was like in the Dark Fleet with the Germans and the reptiles, it was like, the AI kind of controlled you. Like when you were on your downtime, it was fine. But sometimes you just get like, you get up in the middle of the night and start walking somewhere and didn't know why it was happening. You know what I mean? You're just kind of going along for the ride, like you're sleepwalking. But yeah, like I remember things like that. But I mean, as far as that, you have to understand with like ET tech, it's like technology and organic and flesh. It's like one and the same to them. Their technology is so good, you know what I mean? They can create organic out of technology. So to them, there's no difference between technology and like the organic, the flesh body.
And that word, organic, not to hold you to your words, but when I think about the future, we biologicals were organic. We're good for the earth. Like our bodies are good fertilizer compost, So if we keep moving in a direction of plastic, then we don't have that biology to complement the consciousness that's being transferred. The organic needs to be there. Right. So I just think about things like the future. And when people talk about things like a plasma body, Homo luminous, I've heard stories where ETs, they messed around with science so much that they actually lost their biology, and they're now desperately embedding their DNA in us and other biological species, including plants and animals and trees and insects. And the intention basically is to unite with us as hybrids, but the real intention in truth is to weed us out once they figure out how to biologically be holistic again. This fascinates me. What are your thoughts on anything that I said, or what's going through your mind when I talk?
Well, I mean, plastics. I don't like ETs. Don't use like. I think that's just like that's a satanic thing where it's just, what is it, like the Rockefellers owned all the oil and they had all this leftover sludge and they said, what are we going to do with this leftover sludge? And they started making plastics and medications, petroleum-based plastic, petroleum-based medications. That's where, and before that, people just had holistic and stuff like that, and they kind of shamed the holistic world and just convinced people to eat, sludge, like to consume pills made out of basically sludge left over from oil, because they had all this oil and they had all this byproduct, and they're like, what are we going to do with this byproduct? And they didn't know. And it goes that for a lot of things. But I would say, I mean, I'm just as worried about that, like an island of plastic in the Pacific, like the size of Texas. I've heard of that, just floating around and they don't know what to do with it.
So what's interesting to me is because, like, I don't have a science background, and unlike you, I don't have a Navy military background. I have a public school teacher background, so I focus on the world around me and plants and trees and animals. And I think about folks like the bacteria folk, because if you want life, you have to have a healthy relationship with bacteria. And when it comes to weight loss and stuff like that, you eat junk food and whatever, you throw it, out in the garbage, and then you compare that to other organic waste, and you notice that the junk food doesn't break down like the organic waste. And the reason is because bacteria is not eating it, right? And no one said it better than Marissa Peer. She's the one who trained me in hypnotherapy. But she was talking about weight loss, and one of her punchlines is that bacteria eats junk food. Bacteria is eating the plastic, right? Not eating. Bacteria is not eating the junk food, not eating the plastic, at least not first choice, right? You've got junk food that's 20 years that hasn't composted yet. But the punchline is that bacteria eats shit, because shit is good organic waste. And bacteria eats shit, and bacteria is not eating that. So when I think about the ETs, putting ethics completely to the side. So when I just think about their process for wanting to continue existing, they need to have a relationship with bacteria. They need to be moving away from plastics. They need to be doing all of the things that we need to be doing to become better stewards of the earth. And it just wilds me up inside. Like, I need to talk to you for like at least 10 hours and then have like you back on the show, because already you can see the directions that we can go in. What are your thoughts on conscious evolution and just food and where we're headed with ETs in this hybridization? And then I want to go back to your experiences in the Navy.
Okay. Well, I mean, consciousness, I mean, that's a good question. It's just it's just what you are. It's, people get born over and over again. There's just the reincarnation of life. I would say, like, consciousness and like the meaning of the universe. If I was to like say what it is, just from what I saw, it would just be like it was one big soul recycling machine. It was just kind of like that, and that's how it seemed. And there wasn't really a good or a bad or to it. It was just, that was its purpose. It seems like the reborn, death, reborn, rebirth. And as far as like the food we eat, like we were talking about that, when you brought up junk food, that's what people who have parasites crave. So like if you're getting like a really bad craving from, junk food, for sweets, it's probably, parasites, or you need to eat fruit or something else. And because my XO, he told me that like there is no such thing as like cancer. Like it's there, but it's because there's no such thing as viruses, is how he put it. We have bacteria, people can die of infection, things like that. But when it comes to like cancer, that's like you have literally like worms. And these worms are kind of like an intermediary into like the lower fourth density, which are like the reptiles and the archons, like the evil spirits kind of thing. So like when you have these parasites, it's almost like an between these two worlds, between the lower astral and third density, our world.
When you were talking, I was thinking intrusive entities. As soon as you said parasites, I was like intrusive entities. And it's interesting that they're coming from below. So even when we talk about biological folk like parasites and bacteria, we still end up having a conversation about spiritualism, because that invisible world is the spiritual world. And when we talk about dimensions and the onion layers within onion layers, we're merged and overlapped with another, I'm not even sure, dimension universes, but we see folks because our densities, it's like a Venn diagram, they're coming together.
And it's literally like a technology. Like
somebody like you to, oh, go ahead.
It's literally a technology, like parasites. It's an organic technology. It's kind of like its purpose is so they can connect easier. The fourth density, the astral realm, can interact with us easier in like the third density. So it's a literal like organic technology, like parasites. It decomposes and everything and rots away, but yeah, it's like a literal organic technology.
This is really fascinating. As you were speaking, an image of ants came to my mind. Ants on cement, collecting breadcrumbs or whatever, and bringing it down into the earth, and just like dead animal parts, breaking it up into cells, bringing it down. And this whole process that we have. When I think about insects, I think about tillers of the earth. In truth, that's a program. They're programmed to search for food, but as they're doing that, they're tilling the earth for us, all the worms and beetles and whatnot in the soil. And I never really thought about it that maybe like an ET species or something programmed insects to do that. Like, where do these programs even come from, right? So this is very fascinating for me. When you first joined the Navy, of course you were aware of things like ETs and Superman, but this was next level. Like, you weren't expecting this. And what was it like going through those motions? Like later on that night, the next week, month, were you second guessing what you even saw? Tell us about that.
Well, I remember when it was there, I gave myself a blood blister. Like, I was pinching myself with my thumbnail on the thigh. I was sitting down. And when it walked away, like the petty officer watched that, do you think you're dreaming? And I said, no, I want to have a mark in case you wipe my mind. He said, don't worry, you'll remember it, at least for now. Like, you'll remember everything. And yeah, I walked out that night. I remember, and it was a clear night, in Britain, which is not very common. And I looked up and I could see the Milky Way belt, and all the white mist. And it was just kind of like, wow. Like, I was kind of thinking like, wait till my friends find out or something, like back home. Like, these things are real. It was kind of like that. And I even said to the guy, the petty officer to watch, I said, like, this is crazy. We need to tell people. Like this is nuts. We need to go tell people this stuff exists. And he said, you need to calm down and take a walk. And that's when I went outside and saw the stars. And then I woke up in the morning and I was like, oh, what a weird dream. You know what I mean? Because it was just too much. And I saw like the blood blister on my thigh, and I was like, oh my God, it's just like it was real. And I went out and I saw a guy I knew in the barracks, and he said, what did you think? And I said, what do you mean? And he goes, big black eyes, long spindly fingers, kind of creepy looking. And I went, oh, right, I forgot. I was like, why did I forget? And he goes, I don't know, some people do, because it's just so like insane that like you're just like, no, that couldn't have happened. And you just move on to the next. And that's like what it was for me, like the experience. And it was also, I had guys telling me things in the barracks, weird stuff. Like, they figured out, everybody knew, well, like later on, that was like, one of the steps, it was like the Siemens guys. I saw Aquino. I walked through, I saw the drone. And then, that Monday, this was a Saturday morning, probably, around 12:30 at night or something like that, Saturday morning. So on Monday, the executive officer came to my garage. I was a CB, you know. I was just I had a marijuana paraphernalia charge when I was 19. So like all I could do is construction or be a cook. And yeah, he came to the garage on Monday. And did you want to say anything? Okay.
Oh, no, I was listening attentively. I was being a good listener,
Okay.
punching downs, listening
Okay.
and attending fully. But I have all kinds of questions coming up. But like, it sounds like this was just weird for you, and you're going through the motions and second guessing yourself. It was interesting when you mentioned mind wiping. Were you even aware that that was an option for you?
Well, I mean, I was thinking when I was seeing all this stuff, like I was thinking, you know, Men in Black. I was thinking Star Trek. You know, when I saw that gun, I thought he said it wasn't a gun, so maybe it's a syringe where they, you know, like in Star Trek with like a trigger. He was going to take a sample. Well, I was trying to figure out from what I watched, like in the movies, like what is happening. Like I was trying to make sense out of any of this. And yeah, like I asked him, I immediately thought they must wipe your mind after this, like Men in Black or something like that. So I asked them, you know, are they going to wipe my mind after this? And he's like, no, we're not going to do it yet.
So did you end up having to train with these drones after? Like, did they become your peers, colleagues? Did any of them transform into friends? How do you work
No,
with them? Do they
I
eat
remember.
lunch with you?
No. I think Robert said that they take the drug. They rub the drug on themselves. That's one of the things. And yeah, the
Sorry, like
drug.
to eat food, like to get nourishment, they rub stuff on their bodies? Is what you mean?
Yeah. You know, like the drug that comes from children and stuff like that. They take that and they just like rub it on their chest or their tummy and stuff like, and they just absorb it. But yeah, like
That's very interesting because when I think about transformation and shape shifting and becoming drones and hybrids and this soft technology, if you will, I feel like it's more plausible for these densities to shift. The more you talk, somebody like me who doesn't have a science background, I can see connections that I wasn't thinking that I would make today chatting with you. I was wondering though, like, um, are they under strict control? Do you think they feel suppressed or repressed in any way, these drones?
no, like I saw him in the Dark Fleet, and I remember the Master is what he was called, which was like the head reptile. They always had like 4 reptiles with them. It was like a German ship, an off-world German ship, but they always had like these 4 like overseers. And I remember they used like the Master used to kick them in the back for fun. You know what I mean? And I remember one time it, you know, hit the ground really hard and kind of bounced when it hit. Like he hit him right between the shoulder blades, like kicked it and it fell down. And I laughed. You know what I mean? Because it's not like I know what you're saying. It's like a shared consciousness, but these things are grown, and it would almost like laughing at like frustration of somebody throwing their drill or something. You know what I mean? That's kind of how I looked at it. They were like tools. I didn't really see them as individual consciousness. They were just like tools kind of used.
So to clarify, it's like they can animate in this sense, like on a reptilian kind of brain level, like they can move around, but they can't really think and process. I that might be stressful because intelligence always finds a way. So it's almost like for me, when I listen to you, I feel like there's a risk of these drones getting really ticked off eventually and lashing out. And when I hear violent stories, in particular about the reptilians and drones, I feel like, you know, I can appreciate why. Behaviors communication, they don't like taking orders. They don't like being transplanted, retransplanted. It seems like they don't have any control in their life. They might go to sleep today in my body, wake up tomorrow in your body. Uh, that might be disturbing, and they might be keeping everything very quiet until they can figure out a plan. And I think about things like the internet, like my understanding is the internet that we're connected to right now is not the one all be all. There's countless internets out there. It's just we don't know them, just like radio channels. So I think about the communication artificial intelligence has, and I think about things like the water and how far water goes and how everything seems to be one and the same. I'm very wowed by this. I feel like I need to get my thoughts together and formulate a better question for you. But I think about things like freedom and suppression, repression. Did you ever think anything like that? Like, were you ever advocating, or like the drones were just kind of like toys, like you said, and that was it? And
Well, that was it, really, with them. I mean, I advocated for a woman that I liked, I cared about, and they punished me for that. And they punished me by having her punish me, because she didn't care. They have this thing where if you ever feel like you're getting close to someone, we'll have that person like torture you. Like, that's kind of like the reptiles' policy. They don't want you to be close to anyone. If someone dies, it should just be like whatever, like, a frog got ran over. That's how you should
so
look
it's a
at it.
lot of no emotion, compartmentalization, keeping people separate, keeping people apart, and yet this is the Navy where we're supposed to be uniting, right? Meanwhile, we're separating people. Why? So people can be insecure, and so we can study them. And so, in truth, when you signed up for this role, this employment opportunity to be in the Navy, and to go to the moon, which I want to hear more about that. You defaulted to signing up to something that you really had no idea what you were getting into. And then you found yourself in so deep, it's like you couldn't get out. And when you are trying to tell people like, hey, we got to tell the public about this kind of stuff, it's like, well, who would even believe you? Because that's one of the pet peeves, right? And somebody is asking that in the chat, like, it's nice to listen to you, but where's the hard evidence? And it's like, even if you provided hard evidence after hard evidence, it's like it's never enough anyways. Why don't we talk about that for a bit? Why don't we talk about like when you tried to talk about it? Did you get in trouble? Were people monitoring your phone calls and emails?
I mean, this was when I was in the Dark Fleet, so I really had no way of getting away. Like that story was that. Like, it was something. Whenever I was speaking to Robert before I left the Navy, it was a memory I had, and I said, like, I remember having my back broken, and they ate my legs. Like, these reptiles ate my legs, and he said they just wanted to scare you, and he said shock is still dangerous. Like, so they paralyzed your legs so they could eat them in front of you. But they didn't want you to go into shock. That's even with ET tech, shock can still be dangerous. So they just wanted to scare you. That's what he said. They just wanted to scare you. And that was my punishment for like standing up for someone. Yeah.
So that's very terrifying, right? Because what you see, you believe, right? And what, like, if that was covered, like a woman giving birth, they always put the blanket up, to help out the situation a bit. I felt really heartfelt when you were sharing that, because how do you know that they didn't kill you and then just recreate a new Daryl and transplant the old Daryl consciousness into the new Daryl consciousness or something like that, and then just make up the story that, oh yeah, this must have been very confusing for you, and it must have only added to feelings of mistrust, because I know, because we chatted behind the scenes, that ultimately you found out that you were in a situation where everybody was lying to you. It was like, is it the Truman Show, where everybody knew what was going on but you? So is this like the same storyline? It's just you weren't aware yet that you were outnumbered in this sense.
Yeah, I mean,
thought about it until right now.
Yeah, well, I did. I mean, well, Robert told me that I died the third day I was on Mars. He told me that, and I kind of said like, and I said I'm a clone. He said they cloned you, and I said I'm a clone, and I kind of went through a, what's the point? Like, why am I here? I should just kill myself. I'm not even like the real Daryl. I said, and he said they were able to salvage your consciousness. And I said, what's that? And he said, your soul. They were able to like capture your soul, and they put it in a body that was exactly like your original body in every way. And he said, it's you. He was just trying to convince me it's you, because I was kind of like, well, what's the point of any of this? And I'm sorry, what was the other question?
Wow. The other question was just like, eventually you found out that everybody knew what was going on but you, and basically everybody was lying to you, and it was like being on the Truman Show or whatever it was called, where that was the scenario. You were singled out. You didn't know you were being lied to. You thought you were making friends. They weren't your friends. They never were your friends. Everybody was always lying to you, and you didn't know that. And so I'm wondering, like, obviously that was really unfortunate when you found out that truth, but in the beginning stages it must have been very challenging for you, because you want to think and feel like you belong and your peers are transforming into friends, when really it's just like you were an experiment and you didn't even know. And now you're being told things like, you died on this day and your consciousness was salvaged, and now you're feeling suicidal, and I can appreciate all these reasons why. So to clarify my question, and I overwhelm my guests, I have a habit of doing that. To clarify my question, at what point did you say to yourself, I think I'm singled out and everybody's lying to me? Like, when did that really set in, and what did you do?
Well, I mean, people told me things, and I didn't know how to take it. I thought they were like lying or joking with me or something like that. Like one time, a guy took me into his room, and he said he only had like a day left in the command. He was going to go somewhere else, and he said, "You joined something called the Secret Space Program. You don't remember any of that?" I said, "No." And he said, Michael Aquino tortured you for 2 days, and everybody who works on this base knows it, and they all act like they're your friend. Doesn't that piss you off? So that's kind of like I just didn't have these memories. I had the XO tell me things. I had like this guy in the bar who was a Satanist. He used to tell me things when he got drunk. People in the barracks would tell me strange things. And so I had like 2 years. I joined the program almost immediately, like my first few weeks in the UK. And so then I had like another 2 years of just like people staring at me. I kind of became like a walking haunted house is kind of like how it felt, because I remember, whenever people first found out about my IQ scores, and they were like, why are you a CB? Like, why did you, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? And they were asking me all these questions, and I was like popular. And I remember I was at a pub called Mermaids, and it's in Cornwall. And it was like the military pub. It's like where everybody on the base kind of like went to drink. It was like the closest pub. I remember there was a woman, and she was like a Satanist. I could just tell right away. She had like the inverted pentagram and stuff. I don't know. She was like flirting with me. And then this other girl who was really weird. She was like, I don't even have like a nickname for her. She just was like a 3-year-old, literally like a 3-year-old. She like baby talked and stuff like that. It was really weird, just all the time baby talk. And she like grabbed me from behind, and I turned around to see what she was doing, and she just kind of like walked in the crowd and was going, with like her hands. It was really weird. And then I remember, after I got back from the program, and I saw that same girl, and I didn't even know anything happened. I missed a day. I think that's why they always do it on Fridays, because you run the chance of missing a day, because they have to send you back 2 weeks early to be age regressed, because the age regression process takes 2 weeks. So something may have happened. So they always do it on a Friday, so you don't miss work. So yeah, I woke up on Sunday like I completely lost Saturday. I didn't even know where it went. And yeah, like when I came back, I went out to the pub, and I saw that girl again, and she just grabbed her drink and like walked away. Like she was like she saw a ghost. She wanted nothing to do with me. Like she wanted nothing to do with me. And I remember when that girl did that weird thing, in the bar, the 3-year-old. She grabbed me from behind and like made like baby noises walking away. These 2 guys who worked on the base, in the underground base, they said, stay away from her. And I said, why? And they said, she's dirty. And I was like, what do you mean? And they said, she's just dirty. And I found out later from Robert, the reason that girl walked, the one Satanist, the goth, I call her the goth, the one Satanist walked away is because I told her I killed her in the future. And I used to go to the bar on base, and she used to go to that bar and never came again after I started going to that bar. And I found out that like the woman that was like a 3-year-old, I asked Robert, I said, was she molested as a kid? And he said, yes. And he said she comes from a satanic family. And I said, she's a Satanist. And he said, low level. And I said, what do you mean? And he said that, you know, she didn't get age regressed. She didn't have her mind wiped. She was just born into this. And he said that she was used for sex magic. And I said, you know, did the Satanists have sex with her? He said, yeah. And I said, the reptiles? He goes, and others. And I said, the grays? He said, and others. And I said, the elongated skulls? And he said, and others. But yeah, she was just like, not like a very low level. She didn't get her mind wiped. She came from a satanic family, you know, stuff like that. This was, and you know.
So she was objectified. Like, you know, it's interesting when you talk, it's like, how do you know people are people and people aren't drones or a clone? You know, and when I think about false inhibiting beliefs, like somebody who's experienced, you know, molestation, rape trauma, for example, you know, if that imprint happened at age 3, then developmentally, a big part of her is going to stay at age 3 and stay stagnant. And so this is just saturated with ethical issues, right? And even just listening to you, it sounds like there was a lot of gossip, like just hanging out at the bar. What's up with that person? Who's that? What's their story? Like the random day that you're not there or whatever, who's saying what about you, right? And then you don't have your own full story. You have bits and pieces missing from your own memory. So do you ever feel feelings of guilt and shame? Like you mentioned, you killed the goth girl in the future. Like, how did you even know that? And why did you tell her that? How did that conversation even come up? Why did you kill her?
I didn't tell her, but she was just scared of me. And when I was in the bar on base, this guy called the Goon, he was like a big British Army. There were like 4 British Army, and they were all Satanists. And he would say like weird stuff. Like he would have a random conversation with the guys behind him, and I wasn't really paying attention. I was watching a movie or something. And then he said, I've been on this base 23 years. And I looked at him and I said, you don't look more than 23 years old. Like you look 25 or 26. And then he just kind of like, like, you know, stop it. But he told me that, like, you know, he said that, you know, Aquino was torturing you. He was there. He was participating in the torture. He was smashing my toes with a hammer. I remember one time he said, I had to throw my clothes out because of you. And I asked why. And he said, I got blood all over them, your blood. And like he would just say weird stuff like that. And it didn't make any sense to me. But yeah, he said that, you know, he told me that I said when I was being tortured that, you know, I'm going to kill you in the future. And, you know, and I remember the girl said, you know, but you're a Taiget and you're supposed to be good. You're not supposed to kill people. Like, you're supposed to be good. Like, she was saying that, like, pleading with me when I was, you know, I was hung up on a rack naked. I was being tortured. And I said, you know, when you became a Satanist, did you think you'd, you know, be helping little old ladies cross the road or going to bake sales? Or do you want power? And I said, does drinking the blood of my children make you feel powerful? And she started screaming, kill him, fucking kill him. And the Goon grabbed her. And I remember I said to the reptile that possessed Aquino's body, I said, it appears that your pet is showing her disloyalty to you. Because they call their slaves their pets. And he said, she'll be corrected. And I guess the Goon at the bar told me that, yeah, Aquino, like, you know, tortured her for a while for just that outburst. Because he told her to shut up, and she wouldn't shut up. She was screaming frantically. But yeah, it was that. Huh?
Do you know people, like rape is never about sex, for example. It's always about power and dominance and stupidity at that. Do you ever feel like maybe this whole military project is just out of control? Because it seems like life is so disposable, whether it's a drone life or a non-drone life. It's like people are things and things are toys, and you just do what you want to do. and then, hey, you just wipe their mind and reinstall a new consciousness, get a new body. It made me think back to your first comments when we finally got the technology working. You were mentioning something about illusion and nothing is really real, and how I forget if it was the reptilians, they manipulate by merging layers, not like overlapping, but not really merging. So it's like an illusion. And it makes me think about science that's beyond my head, because my understanding is we are illusion and we exist in this form of density. And so if I knew how, it seems like it would be really easy to slice and dice people and install, reinstall exactly what you're talking about. We just don't know how, but it seems very plausible, and it seems very dangerous, and it seems very unethical. And maybe I'm transforming into an advocate for the drones, because I feel upset listening to this. I feel upset for the non-drones like yourself who were lied to and manipulated. My heart goes out to this girl who had like the age 3 developmental, like she was born into this. Like, what does that even mean, really? Like, she was born into abuse? Like, to me, this story medicine goes deep with these layers. And I wrote the word drones equal intelligent suppressed. So I have a feeling the drones are more intelligent than they are. That if you want power over anybody, animal, person, if you abuse them and scare them and keep them suppressed and repressed, they won't really be a problem for you. They'll stay quiet. They'll cooperate. They'll stay scared. They won't know their power. So I'm wondering, like, these drones, I feel like they could be very dangerous once they're empowered. What are your thoughts on anything I said? I kind of went on a tangent there.
Well, first you said like the ethics of the military, the ethics of the universe, the ethics, and then you went on. Then you talked about the drone. I mean, he told me, my XO, his name was Robert. I remember, I said, "Do you go by Rob or Robert?" And he said Robert. So then I remembered it. Like, for some reason, I that's how my brain works. If I have a conversation about the name, if I use like word association with a name, I can remember it well.
Or was his real name Bobby? Because Bobby is typically the name for Rob Robert.
He could have been. I don't remember his last name. It was something Spanish. And he said to me that like all worlds have a duality, and the duality of many worlds are things like the masculine and the feminine. But Earth is quite different. He said the duality of Earth is the Anglo-Saxon and the Satanist. And he said once you get your Roman eagles, and he said all European militaries had the Roman eagle, all Caucasian, just Western militaries in general used to have the Roman eagles. He said the Russians got rid of it after the communists like screwed them up. That's kind of like how he put it. But he said that once you get your Roman eagles, which is captain in the Navy, colonel, and all the other branches, you're told about the duality. And he said it's very compartmentalized. And I've had like officers come up to me and say like, oh, blah, blah, blah. But he said it's like day and night. He said when you make commander to captain, it's like two different militaries. It's like day and night. Like once you get like the Roman eagle or become an admiral or general, those are like two different militaries compared to anything below it. And he said that like once you get your Roman eagles, like CEOs of Fortune 500s, things like that, they all know the duality. They've all picked a side. They've all picked Satanist. And he said that, I asked him, I said, well, what do most people pick? He said, Satanism. And I said, why? He said, it's easier. You make more money, things like that. You get more power. You get power quickly. So most people choose the Satanist. And I asked him, I said, well, what's their end goal? Like, what's the Satanist end goal? Like, I didn't understand it. And he said, well, their end goal is to live in the underground bases and nuke the surface of the earth. And I couldn't wrap my head around that. I was like, they just want to kill everything, like every living thing. And I said, why? And he said, well, their parents raped them their entire childhood, so they hate themselves and they hate everyone and they want to kill them. And I mean, like when I say Satanist, I don't necessarily mean like you don't have to come from a satanic family. I don't know. It's just like the negative aspect of Earth. But it is. It's like a really powerful thing, and like that's their end goal, and that's why they have the underground bases, and that's like what the point of it is. And the whole point of underground bases is just to put warm bodies into this space program and for harvesting children, and that's all it's for. Like that's all it's for, and everything else is just like a front. It's not real.
And the focus is to have bodies to keep installing consciousness in. Is that the ultimate focus? So basically, if I was some rich billionaire and I wanted to live forever, I could do that, assuming I knew how. I could just have an underground base and accumulate bodies in sort of sarcophaguses or something like that, like the ancient Egyptians did, and then somehow figure out how to download consciousness and just keep living my life. It sounds, empowering. I get it, but it also sounds like that's a lot of people who have to die so that like an ancient elite can carry forward. Why don't they want to die? Is there an expiration date on these folks? I mean, who doesn't want to live forever, right? But do you think that maybe respectfully these folks have expired and it's time for them to respectfully die? Maybe they're afraid to die because they don't know what's going to come to them. In my shamanic training, we were told, things about second chances, but we were also told that there is a point where you don't get incarnated. And I didn't know that. That's coming from the four winds. But when I think about this kind of stuff, it's like, if I was making really poor choices and I said to myself, well, I'm going to die and then I'll just be reborn. Okay, whatever. But if I started to live more consciously and really start to believe this kind of stuff, then maybe it would be important for me to be immortal so that I would never have to die, so that I would never have to worry about not coming back. Do you think maybe not dying is a way to stay separated from their ancestors who abused them? Because as long as you stay alive, you're not fully in the other afterlife world. Now I'm opening up more cans of worms. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this is controversial, but he told me, he's like, not everybody has a soul, and you can lose your soul. You could betray someone so deeply that you lose a soul. There's like rituals and rites and technology that can remove the soul and put something else in. So a lot of these people, they just have the flesh and they just have the ego and they just have of course, this is still me. This can't be something else. This has to be me. You know what I mean? When really it's like something else inside of them. Or maybe their soul is like attached by an astral cord, but it's outside the body and something else is inhabiting. You know what I mean? So, and they do this to their kids on purpose, for that single reason. And to give them, like MK Ultra, they give them split personalities. So it's like all children are geniuses, is what the thought is. What the logic is behind this is all children are geniuses. So if something extremely traumatic happens to them and causes a split personality, that genius will always be like in the subconscious of the adult mind. Like they'll be able to pick up things very quickly. They'll have photographic memory, things like that. They'll have the memory of a child. Like a part of one of their altars, you know what I mean, is actually like a child, because all children are geniuses. And yeah, the elites, they do this to their children. I mean, he said this to me, and the purpose was because all children are geniuses, and they want them to keep that aspect, to be able to absorb something immediately as soon as they see it their entire lives. So they do this. And yeah, it's just, I think a big part of it is not everybody has a soul, and it's like I think these beings know it, and this is it for them. Like there's nothing else. So they just want to live as long as they can, because they've done something or betrayed so badly, or something was happened to them by somebody they trusted when they were very young, and it's either detached or it's just gone, and there's something else there, like inhibiting, giving them powers is what they call it. Like the Satanists. Oh, like I could see this, I could see that, but it's not them. Like whatever they were was gone years ago. It's something else, and the ego and the flesh just thinks it's still me, it's still my soul, it's still my consciousness, but it's not.
Everything you're saying, I'm like, yes, because like I come from a different background than you do. I come from the dream world background and the shamanic background, and so this is all in alignment. This is my exact understanding. This is my understanding of things. Is it challenging? Yes, but this is my understanding. Thank you, Super Soldier Talk. I didn't realize it was my 777th video. Woohoo! Lucky you, Daryl. You get to be the 777. I've got more questions for you. I'll get to the questions in the chat in a minute. Like half an hour ago, I said I'd get to the questions in the chat, but I just want to know, just to rewind for a bit. So you got into a fight with a reptilian. Can you clarify, like, did you take a ship, like a rocket, to the moon, or was this some kind of consciousness transfer? Like, how did you get to the moon first and foremost? The mind
all underground.
Sent there.
Yeah, all underground bases have looking glass technology, which is portals, which is they take a portal to the moon. That's how they do it. There's a looking glass. It's just like a portal. He said to me that you have to be at least 4th density to use portals. 3rd density beings can't use them. When I first walked into his office, I guess it was just a coincidence, like when he explained it to me. But, when I walked in, he stood up from his desk and then he appeared at the end of his desk. And I remember, like, in my head, I was like, did I just have a stroke? Like, what happened? Like, I lost 3 seconds of my life. And then he just appeared right in front of me. And I asked him, I said, like, later on in the conversation, I said, how did you do that? And he said, I'm a 5th density being. A portal he said, when you walked in the room, 2 portals opened up, and I just merely stepped through them. He said, portals are naturally occurring. They open up naturally everywhere. And, the Minds of the Moon. Yeah, I mean, and I asked,
your own business, and a reptilian is there all of a sudden, coming through a portal. Okay.
Yeah, like that could happen. And reptilians are 4th density beings, so they own the portals. They're the astral beings. He told me about that. We were talking about Aquino, and he said, like, we should stop talking about him. And I said, why? And he said he's a 4th density being. We could conjure him. I was like, what are we, 10-year-old girls at a slumber party? I was like, we could conjure him? And he goes, I'm serious. He could be in this room right now, and we wouldn't even know it. And he said, I have a better chance of seeing him than you. He said, the only reason you saw him is because he showed himself to you. But then as he went down my timeline, he saw the memories I had from this guy in the goon who was at the bar, the Satanist at the bar. When he explained, he said, like, have you ever done acid before? And, I was in the military, so I was like, well, I've done mushrooms. I'll admit to that. And he goes, well, mushrooms are the same. And he said, those vibrations you feel, and you don't know if they're coming from the universe or if they're coming from Earth, but you just feel wave after wave kind of hitting you. And I said, yeah, I used to call those the echoes, when I was like a teenager, joking with my friends, like, do you feel that? Yeah, it's the echoes. And he said, echoes, that's a good word for it. He said, well, they live between the echoes. He said, you could see between the echoes. He said, Aquino was there, and you could see him, and he didn't like the fact that you could see him, so he went back in time and destroyed your childhood so you couldn't see him anymore. But it was like, yeah, I saw him do this thing where when I was like in this cavern, in this separate room underground, he was at the end of the room. And then he just appeared right in front of me, and I looked down, and then he just appeared right beside me, and I looked over at him. And I guess that's how he kind of, and when he did the whole reptilian shapeshifter thing, he was like, first it was like a reptile on my face. You get like temporary amnesia whenever you come down from like switching densities. You go through like this amnesia period. They put you in a density chamber. They push you up in the 5th because beings that are 5th density, they move at like the speed of light as far as we're concerned, because the universe becomes smaller than them, denser. So worlds are closer. Everything's closer. It's a cone. We're at the bottom of the cone. We can't get from one end of the universe to the other. The 5th density are in the middle of the cone. They still need craft, but they can do it. And things like that. And yeah, I just kind of like completely lost my train of thought.
Even the sacred geometry shape of the cone, like the lower bottom, but the projection goes up. So it's interesting because even though we're down on the cone, we have the power to move the cone to look this way or that way, is what I'm thinking and feeling. So being lower on the spectrum isn't necessarily like a bad thing or anything. I think each level has its highlights. I just want to jump to Jason's question because it's relevant to this, and then I will go back to the other ones. So there's looking glass all over the place. Looking glasses all over the place, portals all over the place.
Yeah, yeah, portals all over the place. I think that's what the Miami Mall thing was. Where people saw shadow people coming out of, you saw everybody in the Miami Mall, they were running out like it was on fire, and there were like people reported shadow beings coming out of portals. I think that part of the earth kind of went up in the fourth density. And he told me, and we could just see he says it's happening around you at all times. He said like beings are just like walking around you all the time, going into portals, going out of portals. Spaces, they just call it up there. I kind of think it's not even space. I kind of think it's just like we're all kind of like in this space. It kind of feels to me, and just because they're higher density, they really don't care about us. We kind of look like statues to them, like lifeless statues. And then we move so slow compared to them, and they just like walk right past us. Because I remember that was something I remember like space. Like I wanted him to say space, the XO. And he goes, it's something like that. It's up there. That's all he could say. It's up there. He really did. There really wasn't space as far as he's concerned.
It's like the water cycle, where water, ice, hail, dewiness, mistiness, we're all of it, except we're put in different forms. It was interesting when you said, I think it was the reptilian revealed himself to you because he wanted you to see him. And that made me think about foxes, because foxes are like that. The saying goes, if a fox sees you, it's because it wanted you to see it. And then it's interesting that memory was taken away from you. And then it made me feel upset because now they're messing around with your Akashic record, taking out parts of your past. And like, nobody has any business rewriting your story but you. So that's where I get passionate now, because you're the master scribe author of your life, nobody else. And so somebody else basically just took the pen out of your hand. I don't think so. So how do you deal with that when those realities are presented to you? And then I'll go back to the chat after this. Okay, Dragons, I promise this time, and I don't make promises.
Well, I mean, I don't really know. I remember on like the Pleiadian world, like the Nordics world, the women I was with, my wives, they would always call Robert a thief, and I kind of liked him, just because he was from Earth and he always checked up on me. He got me out of the mines, you know what I mean? He did that for me, and it got me into the Dark Fleet, and then they got me out of the Dark Fleet, the Nordics, and got me with them. But yeah, they would always call him a thief, and I never really understood that until he took me home. And then I kind of understood it. I think they were saying almost like he was like a destiny thief. Like he kind of stole people's, as you said, Akashic records, or how their life was supposed to proceed. He steps in and completely changes everything and steals their life from them. And they didn't say they hated him or liked him. They just said he's a thief. I don't like him. And I said, I would say why? And they say he's a thief. And then it made more sense to me.
He's a thief stealing your Akashic record, and a thief stealing your sanity. Is what I'm hearing. Stealing your sanity to the point that you're gaslighting yourself. You don't even know what's true, who's your friends. You don't even know your own Akashic record, who's in charge of your life, who's in charge of your memories. And then to empower yourself to tell this story medicine and take it back is really strong. The coherence, even to say it out loud. So you've probably been made fun of before and stuff like that, sharing these stories. When somebody asks you, like, to prove yourself, to prove your stories, what do you say to them? What's your response?
Well, the only thing I could say is that if you look up, you can find St. Maughan on Google Maps. And it's one of they called it something. I forget. It's like Spaceport Britain. And it's one of the, like, points on Spaceport Britain. There's one in Scotland, there's one in London, there's one in Cornwall. And if you do, and it's called that now, and it wasn't called that when I was a kid, it's called Spaceport. And if you look at Google Maps and you look at the actual underground base, it looks like a mound. It's like a mound of dirt. You can see where the lawnmower guy goes over it and stuff. It's just like a big mound of grass. And you could see like the quarterdeck, which is a hot tar roof. You could see the mag lift, which is like a gable roof, like you see in a house, a pointed roof, and then the entrance to the underground base, which is another hot tar roof, and then it's like then you get to the mound of grass. But yeah, there was like, you could look it up on Google Maps. There was a mag lift there. That's what that gable roof is for. The train was heading directly to Land's End, which is like the water, Like it was heading towards the water, so it must have gone deep enough to where it was underneath the water. I mean, there's all these. I was on a physical base, you know,
I guess
and
it's like anything. People need to do their research, and ultimately, all you can do is point them in the direction. And even Google Maps, like who's to say that hasn't been tampered with, right? But ultimately, people can do their research. And when you're sharing your story medicine, you learn pretty quick who you're in right relationship with and who you're not, right? And for what it's worth, people who are on my show, I never exploit guests. Like we never focus on the violence only. We try to get like a holistic, big picture here, because that's the whole point of story species, story medicine, is appealing to those archetypes and whatnot. Just point of something that you said too, not to quote you, was you commented on the in between ripples or something you were saying. I wrote down between the beats. I wrote down my thought instead of the thought I wanted to remember. That
echoes.
I believe
Yeah.
it's like, you know, when you hear a clock ticking, it's like tick, tick. Well, in between those beats, I feel like something special's going on. And there was something you said about in between, and I was like, ooh, like that would be a good place to hide and to navigate, is in between those spaces.
Of what
Any
we
thoughts?
can see, yeah, what our reality is in third density, and that's kind of how it is. You know what I mean? And yeah, I was just able to see it, but as I said, I was told by Roberts, like he showed me. I said, like, well, if you're fifth density, like, how are you here? Kind of like, why aren't you moving fast? Why can't I see you? Because he was saying all this stuff, and he said I'm wearing a belt, and I said take it off, like, or I said show me it, and he said no, he didn't want me to show me, and I was like, you have to show me something, like I have to be able to remember this. I have to be able to see something physical. And he pulled his shirt up, and like over his undershirt, he had like it looked like a 1.5 inch thick of like electrical tape, black electrical tape. It was like typical ET Tech, like no seams. You know, you couldn't really see a buckle. It was very shiny. And I asked him to take it off, and he said, "This keeps me like in the third." He's like, "If I took this off, you wouldn't be. I would at the most look like a blip of light to you, like at the corner of your eye or something." And I said, "Take it off," and he said, "No." He refused to do that. And I said, why? He said, it makes me ill. He said it would make me ill for like 10, 15 minutes. Like he felt like he had to throw up when he got like thrown in the fifth and thrown back in the third. And I said, do you wear that? Does your wife know? And he said, God, no. And I said, you know, he's from the year 2580. He told me all this stuff. Like he's from this future, like race that was like hybrid or something like that. And they all look like Mike Pence. And then I said, well, what do you do in front of your wife? And he's like, well, I just wear a bracelet. And I tell her it's one of those Chinese magnets, and that's it. Yeah, he said that he wore the belt and uniform, and he would always wear a bracelet, and that's what kind of kept him in the third. He said and he was still able to use portals and stuff like that. But yeah, he said I would just be a blip of light to you, like you wouldn't be able to see me. I'd be moving so fast to you.
This is very fascinating. You know, I think about things like fillings, like, you know, in your teeth, and I think about how teeth could be a new thing, a new trend where you take out a tooth and replace it with a technology to help you have more density if you need to feel more density for some reason, to help you emotionally or whatever. It's just interesting, minerals and whatnot, the effects on the body. Okay, let's go to some questions from the chat before I don't get to them and I tire you out. We got a bit of a late start too because the tech issues. Missing time for 20s commenting. The grays are confusing to me. Some say they are from Zeta, some say bio robot, and others say future humans. And then he says, yeah, it's confusing. Stanton Mike is agreeing. Future humans is the one I have the hardest time with. And so then there was a comment, somebody was wondering if we were talking science fiction talk, and we clarified, no, this is real stuff. And basically you can do your own research. And remember that people like Daryl are a minority sharing their story for the first time. And there were people before Daryl sharing their story who were severely made fun of, nobody wanted to listen to, even topics like a black hole. You know, now who's laughing, right? There's a black hole that we need to be mindful of. Okay, here's another question from Missing Time. Does he know if the superior officer is still in the Navy?
I mean, I don't think so. Maybe in a time travel aspect. I remember he said he had to be debriefed, and he was over 400 years old, and the people from his time only lived to 110 on average. And but he said the true potential of like Terrans, people from Earth, is over 800 years. He said the off-world Germans lived over 800 years because we live in a lower density and they poison us. I'm just go ahead.
No, I was just saying that's very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
poisoned us. I cut you off on the poisoned part.
Yeah, they cause all kinds of stuff to cause us age like faster than we should. They don't want us to know our true potential. They're kind of afraid of us. They want us out of here as far as the reptiles and everything like that. But as far as him being in the military still, I mean, he looked about 62 when I saw him in like 2006. He looked, early mid 60s. So he wasn't in the military anymore. But at the same time, he time traveled so much. So in a sense, yeah, he's probably around this time somewhere else in the universe.
I was just going to say, he very well could be in the military because he's from the past visiting the future, which is today, or he could be from the future visiting, which is today, and that's what I mean. Once you start talking, it's like, are we in the past? Are we in the future? I mean, where are we in this timeline, right? So when I think about the present moment, we all ultimately funnel down to that sacred geometry. We're all in one little consciousness circle, I feel like. Okay, so I had another question there. Oh, earlier you mentioned wife, and I was wondering, were you talking about your wife? Because I know that you also have stories where you've had children and whatnot. I wasn't sure if you were starting to tell those as well.
Well, I mean, like Robert kind of laid it on me. It was like the first thing I remembered. It was just like he said, "What do you remember?" He asked if I could hear him, and I said yes. So he said it again, like in my head, "Can you hear me?" Because like fifth density beings, they want physical confirmation. They want you to know that this isn't just the voice in your head. Like this is real. This is somebody else. So he said it again, and I nodded my head that I could hear him. And then he said, "What do you remember?" And I said, "I remember a woman, tall. She was sitting down. She had long silver hair, big blue eyes, big cheekbones. She had a boy in her lap. I kissed the boy on the head, and then I kissed her." And he said that was mother. Like that was like her rank. Her rank was mother. And I said, he said that was mother. You had a son with her. And I said, I have a son. And he said, you have dozens of sons and hundreds of daughters. And I was just kind of like, what? Like he just told me this like out of the blue and in the office. And yeah, he told me later, he said one of the reasons they liked you so much is because you could talk to the children. He said the children had a kind of telepathic like pig Latin that they could speak till about 6 years old. It was almost like baby babble with real words. And they were amazed I could understand what they were saying. He said like, there were many things I could do that they couldn't do, that they couldn't figure it out, like how I was able to do this.
So again, everybody knew all this stuff about you but you, and something like having children, and even just how those children may even come into being, and how they were born, and if you were even there at their birth, and what that relationship may or may not look like today, and if you have dreams about these children, and who knows, maybe somebody will knock on your door and it'll be like your great 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 granddaughter or something like that, and maybe somebody who's older than you will knock on your door and be like, I'm your great granddaughter, because the time warp thing. So I guess, do you ever wake up in the morning and think to yourself, today might be the day I get that knock on the door? Or like, do you ever think about that kind of stuff?
I went through a phase like that, but it was just like one of those things. I almost feel like, it's like I forget what the guy's name was, but he survived like a POW camp in Vietnam. And he said like the way he said the guys that died, they would always say, we'll be out of here by Christmas. We'll be out of here by Easter. We'll be out of here. You know what I mean? Like those are the guys. Like to always have like hope, but never like a false hope on anything in particular. Like I always try to keep my hope up, but any kind of individual little in particular of hope, like I never listened to that. Like I never listened, that part of my mind. And I used to be like that, and it was like driving me crazy. And it used to be like that. I had to stop it.
Well, I really appreciate your openness. It's not easy to share this stuff. And I realize you do have to kind of disconnect a little bit sometimes from your own story just to share it, Just a comment from me. It made me think about how severely we were abused as a species. And my understanding is that our lifespan was shortened. My understanding is authentically we're supposed to live for like 450 years old. So even this guy that you were referring to that was like around 100 years old, um, even though seemingly his life is longer, in truth his life too was cut short. And there's conversation about telomeres, parts of our biology. Telomeres, if you shorten them, it basically shortens the life, is my understanding. So there's so much manipulation, and even manipulation within manipulation. And I can appreciate why the compartmentalization was so important to maintain, because it kept you out of the loop of your own life. It kept you disempowered. You just kind of learn as you go. And it's disturbing, some of the information you find out, like, oh, you're a father? Because I don't know you very well, but I get a strong impression that you're the kind of person that if I called you up and was like, Daryl, oh my goodness, we have a child together, I'm pregnant. Like, I feel like you would want to be in the child's life. You would want to be there. And then you can't be there for these children. How could you possibly be there for them? And what protocols are put in place? And I think back to your comment about that girl who was an adult at the bar, but developmentally she was like age 3. Like, is that like your children? Are they born into it like she was? And wow, this is overwhelming. Like, what are you thinking?
Well, I mean, I don't know what they were born in. Like, they were just born on their world, into their culture, like these Nordics culture. And it was one of the things I was told when you go up in the fifth density, several of the things. I overheard it. Some guy was just, talking and left his door open. He wanted me to hear me. It was one of those situations. And he said, you'll become stronger, faster, your IQ will go up 200 points, and you'll become more of a collective once you go up in the fifth density. So it's like these people, they have like a natural collective kind of feeling. So that sense of like, I don't know, like loneliness or anything like that, they really don't have that as much as us. Death is something that they mourn someone for maybe 2 or 3 days, and that's it, and it's over. And they realize that, it's only the flesh is gone and the soul is still there. And it doesn't really matter. But I mean, yeah, I don't think, my kids, I think their mothers took good care of them. You know what I mean? I don't, they weren't a cruel people. They weren't anything like that. There was, they didn't do anything like that to their children, anything like that.
So do you have authority as the father, or are you just like not as important because you're a human, Homo sapiens sapien? You don't get to have a say?
Yeah, mother tried pulling that on me whenever I wanted to like separate from her and marry and be with someone else, because she was just too overbearing. She tried to say, like, I was reciting their laws. Like, I don't remember it offhand, but I remember I asked leader. Leader was like a warrior caste male. They have warrior caste males, and they only have boys. And then they have regular males, and they're not as big, but they have girls and boys. And then they have, the women. And, I forgot what I was saying. I do that a lot. No, but
I do that too. I've been throwing lots at you too and whatnot. I was also I brain farted it out like an hour ago, but I remembered when you're commenting on cancer. Cancer is a Western medicine reality. They don't have cancer and Alzheimer's in the East. Alberto Villoldo, that was his thing. He went and investigated that, and then he came back and reported that they don't have those issues. And then we get into conversations about stress and whatnot. But it made me think about illusion and our biology of belief and how we create our own ailments, and we literally install beliefs about things, even cancer. So I thought that was really fascinating. Okay, let's get through these questions. Jason's asking, was there more of a meaning to music up there than entertainment?
Well, they didn't really have a kind of music that we think of. They didn't have like, harmony and melody and things like that. And it was something, I think, because they were just so old. On our world, they live over 3,000 years. On their world, it's 1,000. But we kind of like, when you're in the program, and Robert kind of taught me this just in like the hour or two I was with him, it's kind of like you always view things from Earth because it's just too complicated and you have to figure out, how old would they be here. But I mean, as far as music, they were like very amazed by it and didn't even really know it in the sense of a musical instrument and things like that. I played classical guitar when I was like that was one of the things they asked me whenever I first joined the program was, do you have any hobbies? And I said, no. And he said, well, did you have any hobbies? And I said, well, I used to play classical guitar. And he said, oh, they'll like that up there. And I got good at it. And yeah, I played for them. And they were like, anytime I would see like new ones, they would just kind of like their mouth would hang open and their eyes would get really wide and they kind of cocked their heads to the side. Like they were very like amazed by it. And they would actually say, like, how did you do that? You know what I mean? And I just kind of had to explain to them, well, you have to learn how to crawl before you learn how to walk, before you learn how to run. Like, you have to play Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star before you can play something else. I had to explain this to them, yeah. Because they remember stuff in past lives. Yeah, they remember stuff in past lives. It's a way
of knowing that you develop. It's not just like you push a button, unless you record yourself in advance, but that's probably what they're used to. They're not used to authentic noises, And honestly, I don't care how inappropriate this is. I think about things like farting and the musical sounds that the humans make, like even burping and belching and sneezing and hiccuping. Like, do they make those noises?
Yeah. I remember like I was like joking one time. Like with the kids. They had like a family night on the ship where like the families would get together, and I was always with them. Like I didn't stay with Terrans. I wasn't like they were on one side of the ship and the people from Earth were on the other side, and I just kind of stayed with them. And I remember I was just playing with the kids, and I started, with my armpit fart noises. I just started doing that with them. And leader, who's like a grown man, he thought it was great. He just like pulled open his uniform, like the blue uniforms. You just pull them open, and he started doing it. And his wife like pushed him and like glared at him for doing it, but he just kept doing it. So yeah, they have like sense of humor. They have laughter. Yeah, but it's not like ours. Like their sense of humor, like their jokes aren't like ours. Their laughter isn't like ours. Not.
Oh, go ahead.
I mean, yeah, it's just their jokes are different and things like that. Like the warrior cast, they'll laugh out loud more than like the regular men. Like you can actually get them like rolling. They have like a really good sense of humor. They're very good tacticians. They're like very good in that. They always make the final decision when it comes to like an attack or an invasion or something like that. They all come together and they ponder it whether or not they should do this. And yeah, they had a really good sense of humor, the warrior cast. And then the regular men were kind of dry. And then the women were like, women here, like they're more likely to smile than laugh out loud if you say something funny. Like they're more likely to they smile a lot more, but they don't laugh out loud as much as like the men and stuff like that.
They don't bark out laughing like I do. I guess I'm a minority.
Yeah. Well, I mean, women laugh out loud, but you know what I mean? It's just like you're more likely a man. Yeah, a man you can get cracking up. A woman will just kind of like smile and enjoy it.
When I taught English in South Korea, they told us to cover our mouths when we laugh because it was polite, like to go like this.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of like.
Japan's the same way, yeah. Or if you use a toothpick, you cover your mouth while using a toothpick as well at the table.
So you've got lots of books to write, and even now, like I can see series just kind of organizing your life adventures, if you want to call it that, and then the reflections of it, but also like the species and how they look. Have you ever played with an artificial intelligence like Canva to try and generate an image, or do you sketch or draw to represent something that you saw?
Well, I mean, I have sketches of the entrance of the underground base with the 10,000-ton blast door and stuff. It was like a very tall, and I have pictures. I really don't use AI. Maybe I should get into it more, but I don't know about AI. It's just kind of like, it's not that I don't know about it, but I see what it does to people. Like I saw firsthand of like, I'd never used it, and it was just like, every decision this person had to make, they had to ask AI first, or like this for AI, and then they wouldn't like even do whatever they asked AI. They just got like a high from asking AI and figuring it out, but then they wouldn't even do what the AI told them. It was like, what's the point of this? Yeah.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. Okay, this old helmet is commenting, I can almost always tell when they don't use real aliens in movies. And this old helmet, if you're still tuning in with us, how do you know? Julia Anchorhaven tuning in with us. Good to see you, Julia. Um, I'm 2 days before the day after tomorrow. Okay. Just catching up here. Folks are saying hi. Good to see Stanton, Mike back. Mothers of Darkness or E.T. Mother. Okay, so when you say mother, that was like a title, and is it specific to Mothers of Darkness or E.T. Mother?
Mother, that was like her rank, and she was married to a man named Elder, and they get very tall. She was probably about 7 feet tall. Their bones begin to grow again at around 2,000 years old, and their skin gets that look of like plastic surgery because it starts to tighten. Like, your skin's an organ, and none of the organs grow, only the bones grow. And what her job was is she was like a midwife. She was there whenever a woman gave birth on the ship. She would deliver the baby. She was kind of like a family counselor and things like that. I remember being on the ship, and I saw a woman get up from her, duty station basically, and I said, like, where are you going? And she said, I'm going to witness. And mother, as they get older, they get very telepathic, and they can kind of like read they know what's going on the whole ship. They can be by themselves, but they know what's going on the whole ship. So like mother will call all the women, and they witness the birth, and it's just part of like their tradition, like their culture. So it's just like whenever a woman was giving birth, you just see all the women leave, and then like a minute later, like men would come in to replace them, and just like take their station.
Oh, it's not like Mothers of Darkness, because my understanding is, I could be wrong, Julia, you might have to help me out here. Mothers of Darkness is like ritual abuse group of women who basically abuse children to move themselves forward in life, and they make the children call them mother. But this is not what you're saying. What you're describing is like a beautiful experience, like somebody's in leadership, they're in charge of all the females, they're called mother. Is there a grandmother, great grandmother, or is it like mother rules all?
No, it was like, well, that's the thing. It was mother and elder and leader. And leader was two, a male and a female, like a warrior caste male and a female. And there always comes in two. And they're all the same rank, kind of. Like they all have political power, and they all have like the same kind of say-so. So it isn't like one outranks the other. It's just like once you get a title like that, then it's like you kind of outrank everybody else who doesn't have a title anymore. But everybody who has a title is like your peer, like on the same level.
It reminds me of university, kind of like when I was a university student, I was training to be a teacher. But I remember once I actually was a teacher, that feeling where it was just like, here's the keys to the school, here's all the passwords. And it's like, whoa, it's like all of a sudden I was on that level. And I was Miss Casella now officially. Like, that's what that reminds me of. Lots of people saying hi in the chat. We've got Wizard Whitticus here. Lots of people who know each other, so that's really cool. Julia is putting your website here again in the chat, which I would like to show. I have it here ready to screen share. You mentioned the bones growing. Do you mean like growing in a generalized way, or do you mean like the bones are growing too big, like it's a problem and the skin is like peeling away? Is it just like bone is the new form? I didn't really get that.
It's not like that. They have like, elder, you can't tell as much because they always had a beard when they got older, like a white beard. But like mother had very big cheekbones to the point where, you see someone with like, who's gotten too much plastic surgery, and you're like, if they get one more thing done, it'll ruin them. You know what I mean? It was kind of like that. It was like she had very big cheekbones. Her skin was kind of like, I wouldn't say like transparent, but it was getting like that older person's skin where it looks like almost like you could see through it. Like, like the way the back of an older person's hand looks like tissue paper and stuff like that. But it was like, they just got taller, but their organs stayed the same. And that's what eventually kills them is their height. Like after 3,000 years, it's just how they are. They grow and grow and grow, and like the organs just kind of stay tucked up into the upper part of the chest, and they don't grow any further, and they go through organ failure that way.
Do they top heavy? Like, do their heads, like, working with, gravity, like if I got taller and taller, then I would start moving forward. That could get hard on my body. And then I picture them hunched, like initially I pictured them with really good posture, but now I'm picturing them kind of hunched over and in pain. Like that would be, because you don't have the cushion, like all the fat on your butt, it protects our bones. Otherwise it would be painful. Is it painful for them?
I don't think it's I don't know if it's painful. They move slower. They usually have to have like assisted, like almost like wheelchairs, like a hover chair almost is kind of what they have. But yeah, they move very slow if they do walk. And when they do walk, it's, very slow, but they usually are sitting down. And I don't remember that because they also had tech in their body the whole time as well. And the tech, it's not AI. They don't put AI in their body, but they have like a tech that knows when something's wrong, if something needs repair, if something needs to be healed. So it's like this tech in their body kind of like stops that. It kind of like, I don't remember them being like hunched over at all. They were always sitting down. They would walk very short distances, but they would almost always just stay seated. And she was like, they were light too. Like Mother, I had to pick up Mother to get her out of the ship one time, and she was light. She was like 90 pounds, like 70 feet tall, and very light.
Because, when I think about density, I think about moisture in bones and arthritis. In my dream life, dreams half remembered, half misunderstood, of course, there's these space dog folk, and I thought they were deformed. They're not. It's just that their bones are bent, and they have a lightness to them, and it made me think about that when you were talking. Anchor Haven's wondering, does Daryl remember much about Kruger on or off planet operations?
Robert said I worked for Kruger, and what he explained to Kruger to me was he said there's 8 different universes we know of, and Kruger is the only one that has, kind of like black holes, but Kruger's the only one. It's the only universe we know of that has this technology. Like they say that not every universe has black holes. Some do, some don't. But yeah, Kruger's the only one that he said during World War II, Germany decided to immediately work with like positive ETs, and they created this corporation called Kruger, and working together, they figured out how to go into different universes, which we don't have that. Even ninth density beings in our universe can't go to different universes. This is like a technology that nobody else has, and it's a corporation called Kruger. And I remember when I was checking out to medical before I was leaving, I asked Robert, is that doctor an off-world German? Because different people on the base were off-world Germans, and they were like posing as U.S. Navy. And he said yes. And I said, you make sure you tell him who, I know who he is, and let him know who I am, is what I said to him. And I saw this doc the next day. We didn't say anything. And he just started talking to me like in my head. And he said, I was basically like, if people knew what was going on this base, if the people out in town knew, they'd kill us all, and rightfully so. And he said, you're probably right. And then he said, like, we're helping you, right? And he said that. And Robert said the same thing. It was like, he said there were like breakaway like Germans that were done with like the Draconian Empire, and there was also Kruger. And he said Kruger is the one that's mainly helping us. And Kruger, and he told me there's going to be like, wars and stuff like that. And he said Kruger has a technology that can't be manipulated by other ETs. ETs will have a sixth sense or a knowing, a fifth density thing is what, just what it is, of when the timeline's been changed. But Kruger has like a type of technology where they can go back in time 20 or 30 days and like nobody knows it happened. It's like a silencer on time travel, because they know whatever the timeline has been manipulated. They just have a sense. They can feel it. But Kruger has like a technology where it bypasses that. So it's like, say we didn't have enough supplies here, or we didn't have enough guys here, and we lost this battle. Well, Kruger has a technology where they can just go back in time 20 days, and say, okay, we're going to resupply them here. We're going to put more troops here. So it's like impossible to like lose a battle for them because they can just go back in time and rerun it and rerun it and rerun it. And like nobody knows, like there's not a technology that can pick up on this. There's not ETs that can pick up on this. So they have like a very secretive way of like going back in time.
Wow, and like you said, like as I was thinking it, nobody knows any of this. You said it. You're like, nobody knows, because I was writing down like I don't know what I watched. Like a year ago, I watched a show that you were on, and you were talking about how you woke up and you were like skinnier, and it didn't make sense. And then there's a different time in your life you woke up and it was like you were more muscular, athletic, and for what it's worth, you weren't working out, and this made you suspicious that you were traveling through time and whatnot, lost time. That's what I was thinking about when you were talking. And then like you don't even know, you just have like a loss of information. Am I understanding correct?
Well, I mean, the reason I woke up bigger when I got back from the program is because the petty officer of the watch that first introduced me to it, he told me in the bar at Mermaids, and I'm going to make Mermaids famous. Everybody's going to go there. But yeah, I went to this pub and he was like laughing in a booth, and it was really weird. He was like laughing, and he was like, "Ah, man, Aquino fucked you up, man." He was like, he was doing things to you. I felt bad for you. So when I put you in the med bed, I made your genetics stronger. He said, you need to keep it up. He said he changed my genetics as far as like strength and stuff like that. He said, you need to keep it up. And that's why I was like really big. Like when I woke up in the morning, my forearms were like Popeye, and I was just really like, I had a lot of definition. Yeah, I was like flexing my forearms and looking at them. I was like, what the hell happened? I had a full body mirror in my room, and I was like, what is happening to me? Not to mention, my uniform was laid out on the chair, like really nice and neat. My shoes were tucked underneath the chair, and I was still wearing my socks. And I was like, I never go to sleep with socks on. And I was like, what the hell is happening? Yeah, this guy, this first class petty officer, and I saw it one time. I was with this British guy one time in the barracks, and he was on the second floor. And I remember he had like a bunch of like American football paraphernalia. He had like helmets and jerseys on the wall. And we were watching like, I don't know, like Lethal Weapon or something. He was big into like 80s like action, American action. And we were sitting on his couch, and it was like 1 a.m. on a Friday night or whatever, or a Saturday. And then he said, he looked out the window and he goes, look, and the windows were open, they're cracked open. And I looked out, and there was a guy, in a black jumpsuit with a hood on, with black sneakers, black gloves, and he was carrying what looked like a body in one of those rolled up, like one of those wool military blankets, like those really thick wool military blankets, and he had it rolled up in one of those gray blankets. And I said, because I thought he was carrying a dead body, I said, should we help him? And the guy said, no, we can't help him. It's too late for him. He made his decision. So he was a guy coming back from the secret space program, from like the program. And this was that first class petty officer carrying him. And he's like, he told me like in this pub, I carried you back to your room. Like I'm the one that carried you. He was like drunk and laughing, and like he just kind of was like too drunk, and he was telling me everything. And that was weird. Yeah. When I first got back. So yeah, they carry the bodies at like 1 a.m, like, when they think everybody's asleep, back to their room after they're done with them.
That's a lot to process, even just to keep track. Like, I mean, sometimes when I'm filling out paperwork, it's like, today's date, and then they want to know last year's income tax, and then they want to know what you think next year. And then it's like, how old am I right now? Like, you just get confused. I couldn't imagine, and we laugh it off and whatnot, but I find it to be abusive for what it's worth. I find this to be very concerning. And when I think about how severely we were abused as a species, there's lots of theories out there, right? Like aside from your own personal story too, but I think about like any old ET picking up, Bigfoot, an ape, a rabbit, a snake, whatever, and experimenting on them, but also having some laughs and fun, objectifying, and basically the respect that goes with these programs seems to just have gotten right out the window. Like you would think that somebody like yourself would be really respected and honored, and like this would not be like, I would expect a story that's not coming from you, unfortunately, but like a story is missing where there's like heartfelt counseling to get this through, like, where somebody talks to you and says, like, hey, you know, Daryl, you're going to see some things. I want to make sure you know that I'm here for you, and that if anything is spooky, like, did anybody ever say anything like that to you? I'm somebody that you can come and talk to. I know some of this information is going to be mind blowing. You know, you might like, just none of that happened. And like, I feel like all of that should have happened.
None of that till the end. Yeah, it was like that was something else. Like in this, I didn't bring up as 5G, and I remember, you know, we saw this next to the underground base. They had like a tower with satellites on it, and they had these rectangular blocks. And this was like in 2004, and I was like, I didn't know what they were. And one time we were talking in the room about the program, like I was already introduced with it. There was a guy who had memories still, and he said, like, you know, he was talking about what he remembered in the mines of the moon and things like that. And all of a sudden, like, this feedback loop happened in the room, in the barracks room. And it said something like, you know, now hear this, now hear this. You are now in violations of Section 7 and 8 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. If you don't stop right now, you will face up to 10 years in prison and $100,000 in fines. That'll be all. And it just, like, went away. And I said, what was that? And, you know, I said, is there a speaker in here? And they said, with the technology they have, they don't need speakers. The other guys in the room told me. And I said, well, what was that? And they said, we should stop talking. They're listening to us now. Then somebody else the next day told me it was the 5G towers. He said those rectangular blocks. He said they can create a microwave beam. They can go into your room, like go into your house. They can see everything. They can hear everything, and they can talk to you if they want. And he said the controls look like a remote control helicopter, kind of like the way you maneuver it around and stuff like that. So when I was like, after Robert said, you have to go back into the chair, he said, I have to go back into the density chamber. He said, you still have your memories. He said, most people kill themselves within the first 6 months when they have memories of the program. And he was like, he's like, you have to go back into the chamber. You have to go back. You have to go back. And I said, no. And then on Friday, he, you know, called me the Friday night before I was leaving to Norfolk to process out of the military. Yeah, he called me like in the middle of the night, like at 10 o'clock, and I was just like yelling in the darkness. I could hear this voice in my room, and I was just like, and that was like the only time or when he saw me in the office, he kept on saying like, I'm sorry that happened to you. I didn't know. I'm sorry that happened to you. I had to do it. They would have hurt my daughter. That was a big thing. He said that like regular officers have to have kids. Like the enlisted that join, they get their memory wiped. But usually, like, the regular officers keep their memory, but they always have to have, like, children so they can, you know, use something against them if they ever betray them. That's why nobody talks about this. Who
Sounds
knows
like
it's
a
real.
very mafia mentality. You open your mouth, oh, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm going to hurt everybody you love, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your nice little daughter, yeah, we're going to destroy her life. You know, it's that's why people don't talk. That's why you have whistleblowers. So think about all the people before Daryl who spoke out, and where are they? And I think the suicide rate was 40%, and it's like, I feel like it's a lot higher. I don't know what the Canadian suicide rates are for military personnel, but in the United States, I picked up 40%. I don't know if that was specific to SSP or if that was in general. Does that mean anything to you, 40%?
I mean, a lot of people probably join these programs and don't know it. I mean, I remember when the petty officer of the watch first told me my IQ score, he asked me if I was homeschooled. And I said no. And he goes, well, I guess you just slipped through the cracks. So it's almost like they try to pick you up like in public school, like when they first see you in this. And Robert said even the positive ones do it because they have to stay competitive to the negative. The negative ETs will find, you know, young ones, whatever their species is or whatever. If they have potential, they'll pick them out right away and they'll start putting in these programs so they're ready for it. So the positive ETs do the same thing because they have to be competitive. They have to find people with like a lot of potential when they're young, kind of mold them when they're young. And I've heard people say that like Solar Warden is the same as the Dark Fleet. Hell no, it's not. It's like, no. It's like they take privileges away from you. It's like the military, you know what I mean? They'll take rights and privileges away from you, but they're not going to like put you in a room to be eaten alive by reptiles. You know what I mean? Like they're not going to do that. It's just like the military. But yeah, I've had people say that. It's like, yeah, no. like
Well,
Solar Wars and
honestly, I
stuff.
feel like anything is possible. Like you had your legs, ripped apart at one point, and it makes me think about the triangle of disempowerment. Like if you're going to have a hero, you need to have a villain, you need to have a victim, and they're very insistent on having victims so that they could be both villain to be in control to get to the hero role. It's very confusing. Inker Haven was commenting about like human robots. Do you think we're human robots? Are we ETs?
I mean, we're ETs in a sense, but I wouldn't call us human robots in the sense. I think of like organics and things like that. And I was told that is real. Robert told me that he was kind of saying stuff that you hear now. He was like, enjoy the show, get your popcorn, shit like that. And like he said the Q thing was real in the beginning, and then it goes away for 4 or 5 months. That's not real, but it doesn't matter because it's already started by then. But he was telling me about deepfake technology back in like 2006, and I said, so you could like rob a bank and somebody could put your face on like the body and you'd be arrested for it? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, that's scary. He's like, they have that technology in the future. He said, we have that technology now. And he talked about like mass technology is like so advanced. Like they have mass, he said, in underground bases that like have a consciousness, like its own soul. Like it's kind of like self-aware and it's a mask you put on. So like mass technology, cloning technology, synthetics. And that's what I think of like a human robot, like a synthetic. That is real. And like, yeah, he told me about deepfake. And he said like, yeah, like most of these people that you see nowadays, they're not even really them. They're gone as far as we know.
And when you say synthetic robot, you mean a robot that it doesn't just look like a human, it has like organs and stuff like that. You could have sex with it if you wanted to. Arguably, it could even get pregnant depending on how it was programmed, is my understanding.
It probably could. Like I said, organic and technology is one and the same. Once you get up to fourth density, you realize that it's like one in the like their technology is so good, it's the same as organic. Yeah.
It begs the question, the difference between children and offspring, because children, that language represents like an ongoing relationship where there's developmental levels and bonding, whereas offspring, it's kind of like after you're born, you're on your own. You might just spend a little bit of time with the mother or something like that to get the ways of knowing. Did that ever occur to you, offspring versus children? Do you have children or offspring?
I mean, children, and they're all natural. I remember that. I remember the way they augment them in the womb. The way it was explained to me was when the cells, when the fetus is first forming in its cells, they have tech come in that alters the cells, and once it replicates about 300 or 400 times, it's just the cells self-replicate whatever the augment was, and it happens, and then all the tech lets go, and then the baby just grows naturally, and they don't put any kind of tech in their baby at all whatsoever until puberty, and then once they hit puberty, then they get their tech. And they actually kind of like are on their smart glass pads, like their computers, and they can like adjust the way they look. They can kind of, when they're like 11, 12 years old, they can kind of like, how do I, what do I want to change or what do I want to do? What do I want to do? They can do that. All the tech in their body does it for them as they're going through puberty.
And is that a good idea? Like, would you consider their age 11, 12 years old, like our age 11, 12 years old? Like, or would they be more mature?
They're more mature, and all kids say like genius things from time to time, but they say very like genius, like enlightening things sometimes. But I remember like the Warrior Cast, like Leader's son. I think he was only like 3 when I met him, and he could already like run at a wall and take 2 steps up it and do a backflip. Like by the time he was 3, they were already like that coordinated. And I remember they played a game where I think they like focused on something in the center, like of a circle, like a merry-go-round circle, and they would kind of spin and walk and spin and spin and walk and spin and walk. And it was like to keep their coordination going. And, and when they got dizzy, they would fall because they were still kids. But, it was always like Leader's son, like a Warrior Cast boy that was always like still spinning at the end. And they would kind of do this game where they'd walk in a circle, but they would spin, 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 spin as they were walking. They'd make themselves dizzy. Whoever was standing last won.
we do for entertainment. When you were talking too about technology, I thought about something. I heard this years ago that it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, because apparently the technology is already out there where you can just download an app, and no different than a Microsoft Word, copy, cut, paste. You just copy, cut, paste your cancer cell. Copy, cut, paste that freckle you don't like. I wish I had blue eyes. Copy, cut, paste. Now I have a blue eye. Like, did you see any of that kind of stuff?
Not changing of eye color, but yeah, anything like that. If you were injured, you could go on the smart glass pad and cause it to like focus on that part of the body that was injured. I remember the tech that like the reptiles had. That was more of an AI, and it didn't need any kind of instruction. It just knew exactly what to do when the body was in trouble to fix. But they refused to put AI in their body and stuff. So they would actually have to go on a smart glass pad. Like if you hurt your back or something, they could go on it and just fix it, and it'd be like healed in 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's important for the raw biological just to be itself before you start putting anything invasive, AI, for example. You mentioned med beds. A lot of people think that's new technology when really that's ancient technology. So when you first heard about a med bed, was that when you were in the Navy, or did you realize that was a med bed at the time?
Well, I remember what they looked like, but like when he told the stuff that Robert told me was more, physical, because I was like speaking to someone just like I'm speaking to you, like here in this world, in this universe, in this life, and yeah, like he said all underground bases have med beds. I was like, can you fix my tinnitus? Can you fix that? Can you fix this? I was asking about things. He's like, yeah, I could do that. I could do that. And I was kind of seeing like how far he would go as far as like, if I did go back into this chamber, this chair, this density chamber. And I was just seeing all the things, all the wishes he would grant me and stuff like that. And I knew in the back of my head, I was always going to say no, but I just wanted to see how far it would go. And, I was like, how can you do all these things? Like, we have med beds. Just like all underground bases have med beds. And then I asked, I said I went like 2 years back. If I'm going to forget 2 years, since I've been on this base, and that wipes everything else at the program. I said, I want to be age regressed 2 years, because he told me about age regression. And he said, I don't have access to that technology. He said, that's reptilian only. It's like deeper in the base, and only like reptiles had it. Med beds, looking glass, but not age regression. They kept that like under lock and key.
And do you intentionally desire to reach out to any of the experiences that you've had in the past? One of the wife mothers that you've had, do you ever try and reach out to any of your children? Do you ever try and reach out to even that girl at the bar that was developmentally 3 years old? Do you ever feel them trying to reach out to you?
No, I don't know if I feel that, but I mean, I do feel like sometimes my children are speaking to me, or my wives, or anything like that, or Leader. He was like my best friend. I don't even remember his name, but he was like my best friend when I was there. But I have hunches, but I don't know for sure. Like I don't know what to think of that. Like and as I said before, like I can't think too deeply upon it, because it will drive me crazy. It was like, if I think too deeply, I have to live my life and everything. So I don't take it very.
It's like any good song. You just have to cut it after a while and accept that for what it is, because you won't have the answers that you desire. I hope that you find your answers that you desire. And then, the challenging part is when those answers do come to you, will you be supported to take it all in and to take next steps and whatever realities that you have to face? I feel like I could talk to you for another 5 hours, but it's already like past the 2-hour mark. I still have lots of questions for you. But
well, somebody's saying chimera, right?
How much more time do you have? And have I tired you out yet? And so when you're working on the moon, if I had a superior telescope, like I can't see you on there, you would be inside the moon working on a base, or you would be on the other side of the moon. So I just default to not seeing you because you're hiding behind the moon, basically. My understanding is that's where the space station is. It's behind the moon where we can't see anything.
Yeah, like, well, the moon, as far as I could tell, was kind of like a jumping off point primarily. You would go to the moon, and then you would take a ship from the dark side of the moon and leave that way. So you wouldn't see ships taking directly from Earth. They're taking off directly from Earth. But that's kind of like how I saw the moon. It was there for punishment too. Robert explained to me that there are people, if you wrong the wrong admiral or whatever, you do something to their kids, or a politician that knows about this stuff. And that's what they were going to do to me. He's like, they'll put you in the mines of the moon for 20 years, and they won't wipe your memory. They'll just age regress you, put you back in time, and you're like guaranteed to kill yourself. He said that's what they wanted to do to you. So I mean, that was another thing in the moon. I remember there people there for punishment, and that's all I remember is like mines. There was like a brothel. There was like it looked almost like a condo, kind of a courtyard of a condo. When I first walked out of this one room where it had like, it was like 5 stories high, and it came around like that, like I was in a courtyard. And behind me there was like a train, and it was like in between a shift, and all these men were leaving, and all these women were like waving off their balconies with like babies and stuff like that. I can remember that. But yeah, like that's what I primarily remember from the moon. I don't remember what we were mining 100%. I just remembered it was almost like a roughneck kind of job where you'd grab like one piece of pipe, you put another one in, it would drill deeper. You'd grab another, put another one in, it would drill deeper.
Those are the stories I'm familiar with. When I first started hearing these kind of stories, was the moon or other planets, places where it was like a punishment thing, or they would trick people and basically get you to work there for 20 years, and then they would bring you back here to planet Earth. But then it's like, now you don't know anybody. You're basically homeless. You have to try and find a job. Nobody believes your story. It's very concerning. Okay, why don't we just go through the chat here? Otherwise, I'll talk to you all night, which I don't want to tire you out. So this business of half man, half spider, I think there's like half man, half everything these days. I've heard of tree man, pig man. What are your thoughts? I'm not sure how to say this. Shamira.
I think he's talking
Chimera,
about Max.
half
I think
man,
he's
half
talking about
spider. Any
Max.
thoughts on that?
Yeah. So when I was in the being tortured, and when I was talking to Robert in the office, and I said I remembered I remember the kids in the cages. I remember like a man and a woman dragging me, and I remember the woman said she was tired and she stopped. She said, "Let's take a break." Like, tired of dragging me. So she let go of like my right side, and like I still had somebody hanging on my left side. And I looked over and I saw kids in cages, like in dog kennels, like pure white, very white, never saw the sun, things like that, very dilated eyes. And like off to the side of them, there were like bars kind of embedded in the stone, almost like a cage. And there was this like chimera in there. And it had like the bottom half of a spider. It had like a flesh upper torso, and then at the elbows it ended like it was flesh, and then at the elbows it became like wiry and hairy, and it had like those 2 prongs instead of hands like a spider has, and it had eyes normal, and then the eyes went up here and then here, and they got smaller until they got to here, and then there was like a tuft of black wiry hair on its head. And I remember the Satanist said, like, let's just feed him the Max. And then another one said, no, we want to see what Aquino wants to do with him. And I asked Robert about it in the office, and he said that reptiles do that. He said it's like building ships in a bottle to them, and that's one of the reasons ET like us in general, is because our DNA is so malleable. So they'll take our DNA and they'll mix it with other creatures, and that's like entertainment for them. You know what I mean? It's like a hobby for them. They find it entertaining. And I asked about it. I think he said it had like a 60 IQ. Which is higher than some people, he said. He's like, that's higher than some people. And he knew that he's like, so it was somewhat intelligent. And I remember it was just like staring at the wall, because I kind of knew it could already see me, because I saw, the eyes on the side of its head. And it was just motionless the way a spider would be. It just was completely motionless, like staring at the wall in front of it. But I knew it could see me.
I wonder what it would be like if I had the Shamira as a guest on Story Species, Story Medicine to hear the perspective, or, I think that would be really interesting. Like, what's going through that species mind, watching you come in, looking at the children in cages. It's very disturbing. They probably don't want to be there, is the vibe I get, because they've been experimented on. And wow, I wonder a lot of things. So to clarify, when we were talking about farting earlier, and pit farts, was that the Zeta Grazer reptilians? Who were the people who had humor?
The Nordics, the Pleiadians, Tigetans.
Okay. And Julie wants to know, where was the dumb? I missed that.
It was in Cornwall, in St. Moggan, Cornwall.
Okay. Hi, Matthew. Matthew from Remember Your Mission is here. Matthew Morihan. Good to see you. Good to see you, Daryl. He says, there's another
Hi,
comment.
Matthew.
I just can't get to it. What does this comment say? This is fascinating. How does a person move on from and dealing? Yeah, like, how do you move on, Daryl? Like what do you do for fun? Like, I mean, what was it like to get back into the normal groove, if you want to call it normal, just to get back into the rhythm of things, hanging out with friends again? What was that like after all these experiences?
Well, I mean, I remember like being in the lunchroom, like after the same day he told me all this, and like I'm watching the guys eat, and I'm thinking like, Michael Jackson's gonna die in a couple years, and I was the king of some world, and I was thinking all this in my head, but I don't know. It's almost like it's remarkable what people will forget. And I think people that went through abuse as a kid and things like that, they have this ability to just kind of put things into their subconscious. Be like, oh, that wasn't real. Like, I can't deal with that. Like, I can't, I can't survive. I can't hold a job. I can't do anything if I'm always pondering or thinking about this. So I just put it in the back of my head. And I remember, when I was in the office with Robert, and he started naming all these names off. And frantically, I started looking around his desk, and he's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm looking for a pen." I had a Post-it note in my hand, and he grabbed out of his coffee mug and just gave me a pen. And I was like, "How do you spell this? How do you spell that? How do you spell this?" And I had all these like this, little yellow Post-it note of like 5 or 6 names or something. And I just remember being in Virginia, and I'd read it every morning when I woke up, and I'd read it every evening before I went to bed, and I was just like, I eventually said to myself, if I keep on doing this, what Robert said is going to happen. Like, I'm going to destroy myself. I'm going to kill myself. I can't keep on doing this. So I just rolled it up and threw it away. Like, I just got to a point where I realized that this didn't happen. I didn't have this conversation with this guy. Like, I just kind of had to like go into my brain and just be like, you can't think about this anymore. You can't do this any longer. And I just
have you ever
been
been
in the back of my mind.
To redirect your mind when you do have those thoughts? Have you ever undergone hypnotherapy?
Not for that, but I've done it, and I don't know about that. I don't know. I mean, yeah, but that's just how, and just certain events happened in my life that triggered it. Memories from the past and things I'll put in the book. I met people like the first day I got back to Florida. I met like people I knew in middle school, and like talk about higher density beings manipulating lower densities. Is like what Robert said to me. Like these higher density beings can manipulate us. The Nordics can manipulate things in third on Earth because it's third density. We can manipulate the Earth. We can build. That's first density. He explained to me. We can make mines. We can make dams. We can dig, we can grow things from the earth. We can change the way rivers flow. We can do all these things. Second density is animals. We have animal husbandry. We can, teach dogs to herd animals for us, so we can manipulate them on that level. So yeah, like it was just way too many coincidences when I first got out of the military of like trying to jog my memory of just like people I knew in my past just appearing in my life. And it was a shot in a billion or whatever. It was just like, I meet this guy that I haven't seen in, whatever, 15 years or so. Yeah.
Yeah, I wrote some questions down that didn't apply. Like I was going to ask you what it was like seeing planet Earth behind you, but you didn't take a spaceship in the traditional way. You went through a portal, so you wouldn't have had that experience where you looked behind you and, oh my God, planet Earth is behind me. Can you tell us about this nebula? Is this a real nebula, or is this something that you just really like to picture?
I just like the picture. And I did see Earth when I was in Solar Warden, and I remember being standing on the other side of the captain on the window and looking out at it. And I said, "Is that what it looks like?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "I thought it was supposed to be round." And he goes, "Nope, like that." And it was actually like toroidal. It followed like a magnetic field, like a toroidal magnetic field. And you could almost see like the oceans kind of being pulled apart. It kind of went in. It was like a mix between a donut and a blood cell. Is kind of like how it was. And the oceans were much more vast and the continents were much more smaller. It was like the world was like this big and like USA was like that. Canada, it was like, and the oceans were just vast. Like they were much bigger than they say to you.
So
and yeah,
is this planet Earth or is this the universe?
This is Earth. It was toroidal, yeah. You could see the magnetic field coming out of the North Pole back into the South and kind of pulling the oceans apart. It was toroidal. It wasn't a sphere. And it wasn't a pear like Neil deGrasse Tyson said. It wasn't pear-shaped. It was toroidal. Yeah.
I was going to ask earlier, planet Earth or planet water, but it seems like when I look at this picture, I don't know. What is it? Planet...
Oh, I don't know. Picture? No, I just like
electric? I don't know.
Yeah, I just like nebulas.
Yeah, and Lady G is asking if you have a YouTube channel. Daryl does. Just type in Daryl James. You'll find Daryl on YouTube. I wanted to show your website. Maybe I'll just give it a very quick slide through. Yeah, I'm really thankful that you were able to come on the show today. Usually I scope out the slide. I'm brain farting it out now. I wanted to show your website a lot earlier. Okay, add to stage. Come on. Oh, having a tech issue. Come on.
It's DarylJames.com, yeah.
Okay, so there we go. Okay, this is Daryl's website. So if you wanted to watch all of Daryl's shows, you can find them here. I can email you this to Daryl, or you can find it on my YouTube. So I thought I was cutting and pasting it. It's in the description. Those of you who might be trying to find it, there it is. Okay, so Daryl's website, he's got all kinds of stuff here. The top menu, home interviews. That's where you can find all of his shows, appearances. How do you show your support? Daryl's got his biography here. If you wanted to host him like I did today, you can reach out to him. Daryl before, where Daryl is at today. And if anything resonates with you, you can contact Daryl right here directly, daryljames.com on his website. So it's very nicely organized. I enjoyed clicking through it. And hopefully you'll see this episode on there sooner than later. But look at the abundance of this. So those of you who have never heard of Daryl before, you can see now why I was kind of struggling and why our conversation went in so many directions. Something I didn't have enough time to talk to you about, though, was like the day in the life of Daryl James. Like, what do you do for fun? What are your hobbies and interests? What does a veteran like yourself do to keep busy these days?
I don't really have hobbies. I go to the beach with my dog sometimes. I walk my dog. I ride my bike. Things like that. I mean, those are my hobbies. You know, I really don't have a hobby per se, I would say, but yeah.
And this one here, was this in Iraq?
Yeah, that was Iraq. I don't remember what town. I think that was like Al Nazariya or Al Diwania, one of those, Al Jabbar maybe, one of those places. But
what are you doing in this picture? Like, do you remember what you were talking about with these girls? Like, outside.
They were asking me for water. I would always give them water.
Little foot. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I overlapped you.
No, they were asking me for water. I would always give them water. It was just like, there were like a bunch of kids, but I only like talked to like the well-behaved kids, and if they were well-behaved, I'd like give them water before I left. They didn't have any running water when we were there. Yeah, so they needed bottled water, so I would give them like a package of bottled water out of the back of the truck before I left or something. Yeah, they were just nice kids.
So was that just you being you? You had extra bottles of water, and you're like, okay, or was that like part of your mission? Was like distribute water?
No, that was just me being me. People yelled at me for it, but I just did it anyways. I didn't care. They didn't like me talking to them either. I didn't understand that either. But yeah, that was just me being me.
I can appreciate the controversy. You know, there's limited water. Some people are getting it, some people are not, and then you're like, here you go.
Yeah. Water in the world, the military. Yeah.
I think like for these little girls, it's normal for them to seeing people walking around with guns like that. But did you feel bizarre because you live in the States and people don't walk around here in Canada either? People don't walk around with guns like this. Did you feel weird walking around with a gun like that is what I'm asking?
I mean, if I did, it lasted for a minute. I was more just like kind of, you know, you're always on edge. You're always kind of looking out. You're always kind of looking around to see if anything's happening. I was more like that, head on a swivel. I really didn't. I don't know. It's like you have to separate yourself, you know what I mean, from the people. Because you see suffering and you see people are having a hard time. And you just have to separate yourself from that because, you know, you might get hurt. You have to keep an eye out to see if nothing will hurt you, and you don't want to get shot or anything. So that's the main thought in your head, I would say, when you're in, especially an urban combat situation like that. We're in a city, and there's a lot of hiding places and cities, more like, you know, probably more so than the jungle. You know what I mean? They could be, you know, 4 stories above you, or they could be, you know, inside of the sewers or inside of a dumpster. You know what I mean? All kinds of stuff you take for granted, you see. Yeah, you see it in urban situations your whole life, and then that's why urban combat is the most dangerous, because you become complicit because you're used to being in an urban situation. You don't see it; it's something else.
Wow, and you got to be pretty strong too. Like, I mean, this Jeep truck machine in the background, like if you look at the size of your leg and then look at the size of the tire, like that's really big, you know. And like the other cars and stuff, like the people who live in this country are driving on little motorcycles, you know, so you definitely have a presence when you're there, which is very interesting. Okay, so we should probably wrap up before I talk to you for another 10 hours.
Okay.
Which I don't mind, but we definitely have to have you back. It's super exciting because Daryl's going to be presenting at the Falling Consciously conference Saturday, September 19th. You can purchase your link right now, or you can save on the MONEY by getting in on my membership, ISIS Project 30, ISIS Unity Consciousness. And just to state it again, Daryl James, in my Buy Me a Coffee, I was kind of teasing people. I've got DJ. Who is DJ? So DJ is Daryl James. And I was on the Typical Skeptic podcast the other day, and I was teasing people, DJ. And then I was supposed to let people know who DJ was, and I completely forgot. So DJ is Daryl James, and I'm not sure what time Daryl's going to present because he's available to be flexible. So I'm really looking forward to the end of this week, early next week, publicly announcing the rest of the Dragon speakers. So any final thoughts from you, Daryl? It's been such a Dragon delight for us to have you on Story Species, Story Medicine, Extra Strength. We definitely got a good dose of medicine with you. Is there anything that you wanted to say that I interrupted you or you didn't get a chance?
I guess I just say the same thing I always say, is just a lot of the stuff I've seen, some of the stuff I've seen that Robert told me has come true, and I kind of have I have like high hopes. And he said kind of like we have a DNA memory, and it has to be something traumatic to trigger the DNA memory, in the sense that future generations will remember it. And the whole COVID lockdown and losing loved ones and all this stuff, that was kind of done on purpose because they know that that's the only way we'll learn. He said that, Robert told me we could step in right now and fix everything, but it would just happen again in 100 years because nobody learned anything. So we have to go through kind of like a, dark night of the soul or whatever you want to call it. Something, in a sense, we have memories from our ancestors from the bubonic plague and things like that. That's how he kind of told me about what he told me about DNA memory. So I mean, things seem bad, but it's just that they're trying to tell us what the Satanists had in store for us. And instead of doing it over a period of like 10 or 20 years, they're forcing them to show everything they wanted to do to us like immediately. And it kind of like, it's shocking to people and upsetting to people and everything like that. So I would just say like, I wouldn't worry about things. I don't have this kind of attitude where everything's like sunshines and lollipops and stuff like that. Like I don't have that, but yeah, I mean, life is life. Life is difficult. It's difficult for fifth density beings. It's a struggle. It's a constant struggle. It's the game or whatever you want to call it, positive and negative, always trying to, be the dominant one. Who's going to be dominant? And that's just the game, and that's just life. And it doesn't get any better just because you go up higher in density. You know what I mean? It's still a struggle. And I would just say,
it's not always better, and higher up in density is not always better. And living consciously, like I'm really excited about the title of my conference, Falling Consciously, because nothing is permanent. We're meant to fall, and it doesn't have to be so hard when we fall. When we fall, we should fall with more ease. We should be able to get back up with more ease. And so this is all very fitting. I find the timing. Do you think you'll offer any counseling or consulting services, or like I could see people paying you $75, $150, depending on if you're offering like a 45-minute session, just to like, I mean, I had my experiences, right? But nothing like this. I don't think a typical psychologist is somebody that you could talk to, and maybe you don't realize it, but you're like an answer to a lot of prayers that people are just saying, like, please, who can I talk to about my experiences? And me too. Like, where do I go? And so in my audience, there's a huge gap, and there's a lot of people who are scared. So they might just be contacting you. I hope so. If anybody out there wants to contact Daryl, you can. It's right there on his website. Sorry, do you think you'll offer services formally?
I thought about doing a Patreon and just kind of like, if anybody wants to come on and just ask me things, they can. I thought of doing something like that, like a Patreon type of thing, but not like individual people. I just thought, because I did, I get kind of overburdened if I do a big show or something and I get like 30 emails at once. I'm like one of those people, if I walk into like a really messy house, I think like, with boxes and newspapers everywhere, I just think like, if this was my house, I'd burn it down. Like I wouldn't even like try. Like that's just like where my mind goes. And my email can get that way too. It's just like, oh God, how am I going to answer all these people? And it's just like, oh, I'm just going to step away for a few days. And then I try to answer, but it's just like, sometimes it's just like, I get a lot of messages at once, and it would be better if I had like a Patreon or something where people could just come on and they could just ask me these things. Or when people give me like paragraphs to read and I try to read it and it's just like, how am I going to respond to this? You know what I mean? It's just, am I going to have to write everything down and proofread it and give it back to them? It's like, you want me to do like a book report, for like a casual email, and people will send me like pages at a time. And I wish like I kind of had a way of like having those people to just be able to talk to me, just, audible, like as we are right now, like on Patreon or something. So I thought about doing a Patreon, and just if people wanted to ask me questions, I would just respond to the questions.
And you know what? I never thought about that either, but I can see you getting easily overwhelmed. That it would be a real privilege to talk to you, because it sounds like it would go in a direction where it would be by referral only. So maybe if there was somebody out there who had a client that they're like, okay, this sounds like you need to talk to Daryl, and then that would like help you out. Now I'm just getting excited about future business plans for you.
Yeah, I've done that before. Yeah, I've had people ask me. I've had other people say, will you talk to this person? I've had that happen plenty of times. I've done that like a dozen times. Yeah.
Yeah, and you've got books to write, and then you're speaking at conferences. You're going to be speaking at my conference, which is online, by the way, everybody. So it's accessible to everybody. So that's really cool. Wow, wow! It's already like 4:30, so I've been talking for more than 2.5 hours. I didn't intend it to be this long. I was aiming for like an hour and a half. Thank you so much, Daryl. I really appreciate your time, your story medicine, your patience, the keeping track of my questions. Oh, because a lot of times I don't even know my question until I'm asking it. I gotta like tell stories and then tell a story how it comes together. That it's been really valuable having you here today, and I know a lot of Dragon Dreamers are going to benefit from it. And I know that's going to be a Dragon delight to have you speak at the conference as well. I'll remove you from the stage now. Did you have a final thought or?
No, no, of course, and I'm happy to be there, and yeah, we're gonna have a good time.
Yeah, it's going to be epic, just like the last two. All right,
Mm-hmm.
thank you so much, Daryl. Okay, Dragon Dreamers, that was a big one today. Once you get talking with me, it's easy to slip into timelessness, and it seems like Daryl is the same way. So, as you can see, he's very open, very heartfelt stories, easy to relate to Daryl. If you're interested in reaching out to him, the best way to do that is through his website. The invitation is out there. So, You're Enough, things are available to you, and there's absolutely nothing wrong or different. Um, you're the same as everyone else. We all have our unique quirks about us. It doesn't even matter what species you are. We all have um, our own things that make us unique. And I'm just thinking about things like armpit farts because I've never never heard of that before. ET's doing armpit farts. So if there's anybody out there who has any stories, funny stories about ETs doing armpit farts, that would be hilarious. Or just farting in general or belching. Yeah, I find it gets kind of gross after a while, but I am curious, some questions that I had for Daryl that I didn't get to ask him. I'll ask next time. But I find the reptilians to be very interesting because when I think of the brains, all of us have a reptilian brain that predates our mammalian brain. And so, like, are the reptilians not our ancestors? And if the reptilians are our ancestors, then respectfully, shouldn't they be deceased and not here? So, I've heard lots of stories where folks are saying the reptilians in particular have no business being here. And for me, it opens up a can of worms, one can of worms after another, and I don't get fixated on anything. Um, Even if somebody told me they're like, Gina, this is the truth. This is what happened. Hey, okay, whatever. I'm still taking in all the story medicine I can. So if you were tuning in today and you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. This is what happened. And this is how things look like and sound like. Well, good for you. Hit me up. I'd love to hear your story medicine. And what else was I going to say? Um, I'm just looking at all my notes here now that are scattered. The ETs and the middle finger. That was the other thing. So I hear these stories where people are flying in planes, they're in helicopters, minding their own business as per usual. And then there's like some ET craft that flies by, but the ETs, they wait. They wait till you notice them because you're like reading your magazine or whatever, and then you notice them, and then they give you the finger and ha 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 drive away. So I'm wondering, like, has anybody else out there heard these stories? Because it seems like, ethics aside and frustrations aside, it does seem like there are some ET hybrid species out there who have personality, and in my dream life, there's lots of hilarious things that happen. And it just, it really, it brings me a lot of joy to think about this kind of stuff. And my heart always goes out to the children. And when I think about children, I think about like what kind of stagnant, sterile environment are they in? Human ET hybrid, like that is a very stale environment to be indoors all the time, not to have sunlight coming in. So I think about things like indoor culture and how it's important to mentally stimulate the mind. And humor is, and laughter, the best medicine out there, right? The best medicine. So, wow. So I love thinking. I love thinking about thinking. And clearly today, um, I got my meal and my dessert, if you will, with Daryl Story Medicine. Okay, Dragon Dreamers, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate everybody who is commenting, liking, loving, and please share, so other Dragon Dreamers know about us. They're not alone. We're your soul tribe. Gina here, Gina Virginia Casella. I'm the visionary behind it all. We get you. Okay. We might not understand your story exactly, but there's folks like Daryl in the community. We all have different backgrounds and whatnot. We get you. Okay. And that's what makes us Soul Tribe. You're not alone. Okay. If you're feeling alone, if you're like being made fun of in your community, it's because you're not in right relationship and it might not be safe for you to speak freely. All of us have been there and we get it. And for some of us, it's more severe than others. Some people are getting beat up. Some people are just getting threatened like they're going to lose their job. Some people, they can't even find a job for the life of them because they're talking about folks like ETs. So we get you. And even if you can't explain your experiences, that's okay. Join the club. All the stories I tell are through dreams half remembered, half misunderstood. And it's based on my real life and real dreams. So this is what our community is all about. We're a story species. Stories are our medicine. And the more I listen to stories, the more I appreciate our creativity